The God of the Bible is not real. Period. This is the topic of tonight's live stream. I'm going to be making a short presentation about this topic of the problematic of humans believing in gods. Like I say, especially believing in gods from other countries, like the God of Israel. So tonight, I'm going to be making a presentation. Sorry for repeating myself. God of the Bible is not real, period. And of course, there's a link at the bottom of the screen. It's a Discord link. And also on the chat that you can call in if you want and have a conversation about this topic. Maybe it's not period. Maybe you have something to present in favor of the God of the Bible or any God. So let's jump right away to this presentation about the God of the Bible is not real, period. Tonight, probably and most likely, instead of 3 hours, if there are no conversations taking place, I'll probably end it at 2 hours. We'll see. So let's lower the volume. Sorry for yelling. Let's lower the volume and let's go with this presentation. So for anybody, if you have a family member, a friend, someone that you appreciate, and they are involved in a scam, a cult, they are believing in an invisible entity, invisible being. They are involved in witchcraft, anything that has to do with the esoterics. Yes, believing in gods, part of esoterics. Please give him a call. Call them. Send them the link. Probably, I don't know, probably we all learned something about this presentation. Thank you for being here. You could be anywhere else watching cat videos, but you are here engaging in this conversation about humanity, about how we process information and how we end up believing in invisible entities. So let's go with the opening. Yeah, we're good. So let's go with the opening. Oh, let me fix some things. There you go, on the vertical. So the opening, the Bible describes God as a real supernatural being. But describing or claiming that a being exists does not establish that the being actually exists. If the God of the Bible is real, there should be evidence demonstrating that. Not merely claims, beliefs, personal experiences, or traditions asserting that he is. Let's examine some of the foundations for belief in gods. Let's go with number 1, the Bible. The claim, the Bible tells us that God exists. The Bible is the source of the claim. It is an independent evidence that the being described in the Bible actually exists. A book saying that a supernatural being exists doesn't, by itself, demonstrate that the supernatural being exists. As simple as that. Just because the book says so doesn't make the God real. Let's jump to number 2 of 6 points. Number 2 is personal experience. Oh, I hear that a lot. Claim, I have experienced God. God talked to me. God revealed to me. God showed me. God told me, etc., etc., etc. The experience might be completely genuine. The interpretation of the experience is a separate matter. Someone can experience something profound, emotional, or seemingly supernatural without that experience establishing its external cause. So whenever you hear someone saying, yeah, God revealed to me or God revealed himself to me, they're most likely making it up. They have probably a genuine feeling about it, but nothing to do with a God, nothing to do with the God of the Bible, nothing to do with the God of Israel, nothing to do with some supernatural God, nothing, because they cannot demonstrate it. So let's go with number 3, prayer. The claim is, I pray and God answer my prayer. An event occurring after a prayer doesn't establish that an invisible being caused the event. People also pray for things that don't happen, and often we can accomplish things ourselves faster than waiting for a prayer to be answered. Also, different religions report prayers being answered by different gods. Number 4, faith. I have faith in God. Faith explains why someone believes. It doesn't independently establish that the belief is true. You cannot use belief in God as evidence for God and then use God as the justification for the belief. And this is problematic for someone that believes in invisible beings. How do you explain to that person how this thing works? But you gotta be patient for our fellow brothers and sisters that believe in invisible entities. The more we bring this topic into conversation, the more we bring it into light, more people are going to be able to free themselves from this craziness, madness of believing in invisible gods from foreign countries. So number 5 out of 6 points I'm presenting on this live stream. Tradition. The claim is billions of people have here, I hear it all the time, Clearwaters. Billions of people have believed in God for thousands of years. The age, popularity, or cultural importance of a belief doesn't determine whether the belief is true. Human beings have held countless contradictory religious beliefs throughout history. But even if you tell me that billions of people believe in the God from the book, the foreign God, it doesn't make it real. Sorry, I know, it sucks. But you keep repeating that same sentence. No, so what do you do with all these billions of people? Do you think they're crazy? I'm not going to say anything. Number 6 and final point. Personal certainty. The claim is, I know God is real. I don't need evidence. Certainty is a psychological state, not evidence. A person can be completely convinced of something and still be wrong. Very simple. Very, very simple. So, in closing, God isn't providing us with evidence for God. People are. People wrote the Bible. People interpret their experiences as encounters with God. People tell us that God answered their prayers. People preserve the traditions and tell us that they are true. So the question is not whether people believe God is real. Obviously, they do. The question is, where is the evidence that comes from God Himself, or at the very least, evidence that independently demonstrate that this God actually exists? So far, what we have are people making claims about a God. And a claim about an invisible being is not evidence that the invisible being exists. So, in conclusion, my message for you, believer in invisible entities, fixing the vertical, as like always. In conclusion, there is no direct evidence for the existence of any God described by any religion. What we have are human claims, doctrines, sacred texts, traditions, personal experiences, and beliefs. But none of these independently demonstrate that a God actually exists. People have provided the claims. People have provided the explanations. But where is the direct evidence for the gods themselves? We don't want your stories. We don't want your personal experiences. We don't want a book. Where is the God doing the talking? You're not gonna fool me anymore with your tricks about stories about gods that existed thousands of years ago and they are real. Nowadays, I have no patience for people telling me stories or talking about gods like if they were real. Now I call these people saying that, pointing out that they are lying, because I'm starting to have no patience with these conversations. I'm not interested in debating anybody about the 500 witnesses and the archaeological findings. Show me the God. No more wasting time. Because otherwise, I'm gonna think that you're making this whole thing up for other reasons or other than believing in a God or because a God is real. Maybe you're doing it because of personal, emotional reasons. Maybe give meaning to your life, anything else. But this conversation has to move on. We have to move on as humanity, and we have to leave behind this ridiculous belief in invisible entities. So just in case I'm done with my presentation, for those of you believers in invisible entities still don't get it, I present you with this image to make it more clear for you, because I know some believers, the first thing they're gonna write on the chat is God is real. Well, there's your God right there. Look, Mom, this is the invisible entity I told you about. He is called the God of Israel. He is the immutable creator of the universe, and he's my friend, Lord and Savior. The mom is thinking, my son has lost his mind. People don't tell it to your face because most people are respectful. But most people are thinking the same thing, that you have lost your mind. But we're going to do it with love, with respect. We're going to bring you back to reality. So you're not falling for these God scams, for this God cults. And you come back to reality, to honesty, to transparency, and to some decency. Let's bring you back to yourself, not to some caricature, some cartoon, or some, I don't know, something taken out of a book. You're no longer yourself right now. You're something else. Some people, thousands of years talking through you. I don't know. So this is my presentation about putting an end to this crazy, absolutely bananas beliefs that this God of Israel is the creator of the universe. So for anybody that has proof, because I still have a window open that this God of Israel could be true, grab that link on the bottom of the screen and present the evidence. If you're gonna call me and try to get me in these mind games, talking to me all sophisticated, trying to get me confused and winning and prove that you're very smart, don't waste your time, because the first thing I'm gonna ask you is, where's the evidence for the God? You don't have it. I'm not interested in getting a debate. I'm not gonna fall for your foolish game about pretending to be smart. I don't wanna hear you talking and telling me, no, the plausible, whatever, thingy. No, just show the God. Show the God. Keep it to yourself, the trying to be smart. Just present the evidence for the God. So let's open the call lines and let's go to the chat. Let's wait for that evidence, current evidence for a God. David Martinez, the Bible is the claim, not the evidence. Absolutely accurate. Mr. Phantom X, welcome. So, for anybody that believes in the God of Israel, God of the Bible, whichever way you want to call it, this is an absolute opportunity to present evidence that the God that you have been defending for so long, this is an opportunity to provide some evidence that the God is real. I'm daring anybody right now, the God is not real, period. You want to remove that period from there and you want to present some evidence? There's the link right there. Just call in. It should be very easy for you. I don't consider myself that smart, but I think I can recognize if something is supernatural or might come from a God. You can provide some evidence. These conversations about debating if the God is real, no. If a God is real, we should not be debating about it. It should be quite clear. Don't present me with information that you heard some other people swear they saw Jesus come to life 3 days later. Don't come to me with stories that you heard something, that you read something, that someone else saw God or Jesus walking on water. No. Just point to the God, show me the God, tell me where the God is. Something that tells us that you have first experience with this God of Israel. Enough with the foolishness. Enough. For those of you that are telling me constantly, Javier, why you take it with the God of the Bible? How come you don't attack other gods? I don't know. I think that you, Christian, are a smart, good person. It's just that right now you're infected with this God silliness. And I think you are going to be able to figure it out. I'm asking you for evidence. You should be able to provide evidence if you know that God is real. If you only believe that God is real, okay, that's fine. We know that He's not real. That's why you believe. So I think it's a call for honesty. It's a call for sincerity. It's okay to say you don't know if God is real. You don't know if He created us. It's also okay to say, I don't know if God is going to be there when we die. It's okay. You have never been dead, so you cannot tell. I might be killing this channel by asking these questions, by presenting this information. I don't care. I do what I have to do, what my system tells me to put out, and something inside of me, probably, I don't know, it's the God of some other country, is telling me, present this data, show them the truth. And what is the truth? That we know nothing. We don't know anything. If there's a truth, that is the truth. We have so much to discover, so much to explore. And these beliefs in these invisible entities that nobody can see are keeping us stuck in time. There's a chat, there's a link. If you know of anybody that have some information, privileged information about the God of the Bible or any other God, it doesn't have to be the God of the Bible, please tell them to join and present the information. If you are presenting supposedly evidence, no need for yelling, no need for calling anybody names, calling fool, calling idiots, because you're not able to present evidence for any invisible entity. I want to say hi to anybody from Colombia. I heard about the earthquake that happened in Colombia, actually here in Panama. A lot of people felt a little bit of the earthquake. I thought I was dizzy. It happened that it was a little bit of the earthquake. We really don't have earthquakes here in Panama. We have mostly, movements, but no earthquakes. But I heard that people die, so that's very sad. I really look forward that buildings are constructed better, more resistance to earthquakes, so people don't have to die. I think that would happen if we can improve governments, regulations for making buildings, be stronger regulations so these things don't happen. You can have earthquakes and nobody has to die. Now, still the chats, apart from David Martinez and Phantom X, nobody has presented any evidence for God. So probably maybe because there's no evidence, or maybe because, I don't know. I noticed that my vertical live stream for some reason are not being shown as the beginning. I noticed that. I don't know if YouTube is doing this on purpose. Maybe they keep sending me this thing every single day and showing it on my channel to pay for advertising. So I don't know if this is part of it, but I don't know. It doesn't make a difference. I still make the live streams and I put this information out there, and I can see that people see these videos or the shorts that I made from these presentations every day. So the word is going out. The information is going out and people are seeing it. Hopefully people review this information, ask themselves a few questions, and they can write to me on the comments, ask me questions, engage in conversations. For those of you that respond on my videos with comments like God is real, there's nothing of value for anybody in this world if you write things like that. I can just very well say that a fairy is real and provide absolutely no value like yourself. For anybody, probably for yourself, because it makes you feel good thinking that an invisible entity is real when you cannot demonstrate it. So there it is. The God of the Bible is not real. Some people has asked me, Javier, can you prove that the God of the Bible is not real? I don't have to. You have not provided evidence for the God being real. Why would I have to provide evidence for something that is not real? Very simple. Very simple. Don't make this more complicated. Very simple to understand. You're saying that God is real without evidence. Sounds to me that you're trying to force your way from a belief to a fact without doing the homework. You're trying a fast one. But people are not falling anymore for this crap. I don't think, I think more and more people are going to watch these videos, and there's not only myself. Unfortunately, there's other people that instead of asking questions and engaging in conversations about, I don't know, about being honest about this topic about God, they engage in debates, which I don't know. Sometimes I don't think there's much value in just proving someone wrong and not moving in a certain direction. Aaron, someone asked me last week, a very good conversation, Javier, if the God of the Bible is not real and is proved, what else is there? I'm like, man, we have wasted so many years believing in these invisible entities. We have so much work to do to find out who we are. What are we doing here? Where we go when we die? What happens, with everything? Because we wasted so many years believing in these invisible gods, man. But it's our fault. It's not anybody else's fault. Out of Babylon, welcome to the live stream. You are real. Z. I don't know what that means. How were you made? I don't know. I think it's the perfect answer for your question. If you're going to say that someone made us, do you have evidence for that out of Babylon? Mr. Skeptic Philosophy, Robert, welcome. Well, it started when my dad got drunk. Oh man, that's funny. Out of Babylon writes, again, your shirt, shoes, glasses, microphone, monitor, and keyboard as a maker. You don't. I don't know, out of Babylon. If you're gonna say that an entity, an invisible entity made us, do you have proof for that or evidence? If you don't waste your time, don't waste your energy, and don't waste your saliva. There's nothing of value for anybody other than yourself that come to a conclusion that an invisible entity from another country made us without providing a single piece of proof or evidence that this God is real. Out of Babylon writes, you are laughing, but that's as close to the truth as you have been, that you are God. Out of Babylon, you always say, we are God, you are God, we're God. You might be correct. At least you're not caught in something outside of time and space as being real. Hey, Robert.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good, good, good. Trying to put an end to this madness of believing that this God of Israel is real. That's what I put a period.
Into this train, it shall go on, I think, as Hitchens said, for as long as men fear death, which I have a feeling is going to be a very long time. So I don't think religion's going anywhere, in large part, but hopefully, to some degree, education and other things can shake people out of some of these dogmatic positions.
I agree. When I was preparing this presentation today, of course, I always need help from AI to make this in the shortest time possible. And I remember ChatGPT presenting some information as asking questions for debate. I'm like, no. At least myself, I'm done with that. I want to present this as if it is some kind of education. I don't hold the truth about anything, but I think my education provides more value than this crazy book from this fantasy god.
Yeah, Hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to address the question in the chat about the microphone and everything like that. We, we
Sure.
have we have two different things here. We have emergent, what we call emergent design, or something that looks like emergent design, and that's patterns that appear whether through weather patterns or systemic pressures that happen constantly that in some sense look like they're super complex and designed. I'll give you a primary example. We have a snowflake. Snowflake starts its position because of the atomic structure of the water, and these things begin to freeze. As it's freezing through the different atmospheres, the water begins to diffuse in the shape of the initial starting atom, and before we know it, we have this massive complexity that has small variations along its path, and it looks super complex, and it is, and there's lots of diversity from snowflake to snowflake, and it's asymmetric, and one could look at this snowflake and say, oh, this is designed like a microphone or like some other thing, but it's not designed. A systemic pressures gave rise to this thing, and this is very likely, this is what we think, might have started the first atomic structures, started the first these kind of systematic pressures giving rise to something. That's very different than you don't see a snowflake and say, "Ooh, who made this? Someone had to have made this." In the same way that you might pick one of the items that you're talking about and say, "Oh, this had to have been made. This had to be designed by someone." It wasn't. And there are many things, whether we're talking about orbital patterns, or several different emergent things that come about. I'm trying to think of the name of the Giant's Causeway that do these hexagonal patterns and whatnot that are created through repetitious heating and cooling cycles and just the thickness of the mud. So there's a lot of patterns that wind up emerging that they look very designed, but they're not designed. They're just emergent from systemic pressures.
Mm. Interesting explanation. I think that's for you out of Babylon also.
Yeah.
What do you think about out of Babylon continuously saying we are God?
I mean, I don't know what that means.
I don't feel like a God.
It's to water down what it is to be, in my opinion. I mean, it's like if everyone is a god, then, or is God, if you're going to think of it in a singular sense, then what's the distinction? Like, there's no distinction between saying everyone is the universe. Like, if everyone is the universe and everyone is God means the same thing, then what's the purpose of the vocabulary? It seems to do nothing.
There's nothing practical about it. Nothing that we can use. Nothing of value. I don't see it. Hey, Professor Hissel, welcome to the live stream.
Yes.
Out of Babylon is asking, who else do you see?
Who else? Why are you saying what agency? Like, so the thing with biological organisms out of Babylon, and even as we observe it in the fossil record, is that there's growing complexity. So the oldest fossil records have very little complexity, and then the complexity continuously grows. And when we're looking at these type of organisms that are similar to these old organisms, whether we're talking about insects or flies, even the genetic structure is far less complex than a human genetic structure, for example. So what we have is we have complexity that is continuously evolving, and more complex structures with multiple different variations wind up being more successful in an environment. It's why it's likely some of the least complex structures, such as early bacterial structures, are the very earliest ones. So what we get is when you get something that is multiple generations down the line of complexity, then you take that highly complex thing and you say, oh, it looks like it was built. But this happened through iterations of genetic heritage.
Babylon is asking, who else do you see? I guess he's meaning by that the only entities that we see is us, ourselves. But that doesn't mean that there are, I don't know, extraterrestrial beings, people or entities or whatever. I don't know, no entities, but aliens from other worlds. I don't know.
That doesn't do it for me. I mean, I could say that we all are, and I know this sounds a little bit corny, because it does have a problem with a little bit of distinction too, but I think it's technically correct. We are all family. Like everyone here is family. They are all, and we can extend those branches back even further to that it extends to all of the animals, all of the, even into plants or in those offsprings. So yeah, you could look at it in that sense, but it's just there's still distinctions of species inside of that set, but I just don't think it does anything to say we're all like God. Like I don't understand what that's doing.
I think it would be nice out of Babylon if you say that those things accompany by something that can be used, demonstrated, proof, some guidance, something that could be considered practical, because it sounds very romantic and nothing really of some substance, nothing to use, in my view. It seems that you got this from some book. You got very romantic about the information, and then you're repeating this information like if you got it from the Bible, which I think most believers do. They get very romantic about the belief about some invisible entity that is loving. You're doing kind of the same thing in a different way.
Yeah, there's a colloquial use of family, and then there's an evolutionary use of family. Phantom, you said no, not everybody's family. Everyone's related. I mean, they do have groups and sets that are referred to as families. So even in the genetic, tree, there is this family, the family of, whether we're talking about aardvarks or whatever the hell. Well, I don't know what some of the technical names are for the groups, but they're regularly called families.
A comment from Phantom X: Snoop Dogg, being the most high, has transcended mankind.
Hell yeah. Higher than Buddha.
What do you think about the image that I have on the screen right now, Robert?
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think what's weird is this is a repeating theme that has happened. Like a lot of shows, sitcoms, cartoons have covered this thing with the young boy kind of finding God, finding religion, and like making some kind of upset with the family. I think Roseanne did it back in the day. I think one of Family Guys played with it too. Chris like found religion, got very Christian, and then he was trying to like influence the family, and they're like, okay, calm down a little bit. So it's a repeating theme of this kind of thing. So I think it's great.
I made a little bit of a joke, but there are families that get separated or destroyed by some family member joining one of these churches, religions, doctrines, cults.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen only with religions and cults. It happens with a lot of different things, but it also happens with religions, beliefs in gods, doctrines, cults, and believing in invisible entities. So I don't think this image, cartoon-like image, making a little bit of fun, is not too far from reality happening in homes around the world, probably at this moment. I had a few friends that changed entirely, going to a trip, going to a church, and coming back another person, and not necessarily a good person.
Yeah. I can't say anything because I was probably insufferable whenever I I stumbled onto this in my teenage years, and just like the kind of sitcom storyline of becoming deeply fundamentalist, and the family's like, okay, come on, tone it down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, nobody discouraged it, and they're like, oh, let him explore his path and all. But yeah, this is very reminiscent of something that happened to me.
I remember the story you told me about the...
Yes.
I don't want to repeat it, but...
Ouch, it hurts. It's embarrassing, but you know, get it out there. You make your embarrassment your armor, so
No,
to
no,
speak.
no, no. I think you're a very good person, Robert, to speak in these matters because you have been on both sides. So you can
Yeah.
speak with authority.
That-
I saw your video, your live stream yesterday. I saw most of it. I saw quite interesting information. Which you could I could hear you more you talking. And it's not that doesn't provide. They give really good information. The panel,
mhm.
but man, when you talk with authority, and I don't know if I'm wrong, but more people would like to hear you talk. Sometimes you would start talking something and someone interrupt you. I'm like, man, what was he gonna say? What was he gonna say? And then you pick
Come
up
on.
again and you talk about something else. I'm like, man, okay. But most of the time I'm listening. I'm not chatting with anybody. But
Well, I appreciate you.
really good information.
Thank you for stopping by.
So out of Babylon, Styles P might have something to say about it. Out of Babylon writes, and everyone is family. If there is one God, and we are all brothers and sisters, then the question should arise in you in simply what's really going on here.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
don't understand how like the one God thing makes there be family. Like the family is made in virtue of the genetic similarity and that we all come from you know, a common ancestor. That's what makes the family. Not only that, but like our genetic structure and in large part even the way that we feel emotions and sensations, there's a grand similarity to that. And I think that's what makes family. That's what makes the continuity and similarity and the communication and all work. It's not by throwing in, oh, because there's a God, there's family. That seems ridiculous to me.
Yeah, it seems to me that out of Babylon pick up some stuff from here and from there, and he's putting something together by himself and still has not polished what he wants to present. One day he says something, the other day he says something that contradicts what he said yesterday. I don't know. I'm glad that out of Babylon at least is presenting information, presenting views, and giving opinions. Skeletora, welcome to the live stream. Being God doesn't mean you are not bounded by decency. Might doesn't always make right. Interesting. David Martinez, theists are afraid to debate Robert. Robert had receipts, especially with that debate of last week, mini debate.
I've had some good conversations. It really depends on whether it's going to turn into a debate. Depends on the position that they take and how, you know, I try to play it by ear. I don't generally get roused at too many concepts, but some have crawled under my skin before. But that's, dare I say, more. I ran into secular Quranism or ideals like this that we should have some kind of Sharia law or something. That can get me roused up a little bit. But for the most part, I'm pretty calm about these ideas. I've engaged with them a lot. Take them with a grain of salt.
Even when you talked to this kid last week, Catholic pretender, I don't remember his username. Even when you, I mean, I'm not gonna say putting him his place, but kind of. I mean, you were humble about it. That was really nice. You didn't like celebrate or to him. I think he learned a little lesson that day, especially after sharing that video about the flying piece of bread as proof that the God of Israel is real. That was really bad. In case you missed it on the screen right now, I have part of the presentation that I did at the beginning. This is the opening. The Bible describes God as a real, supernatural being, but describing or claiming that a being exists doesn't establish that the being actually exists. If the God of the Bible is real, there should be evidence demonstrating that, not merely claims, beliefs, personal experiences, or traditions asserting that he is. Out of Babylon, he sounds nice and intelligent, but the things he's versed in his deception. History is a lie. We live in cycles of the rich ruling over the poor.
Yeah, that's just like this emotional lensing thing. Like there's these things that upset somebody emotional, so everything seems to have like these emotional connotations that are connected to them. So in his particular thing, he sees there's a big class division, and everything's kind of seen through that lens. Um, yeah, any time, whether you have a chip on your shoulder, or whether you have, and I don't mean to just class it out as that, or if you have some group that you're angry with, you're frustrated with, you have some woe with you, like that's a distortion of the lens a little bit when we're trying to just look at things epistemologically and just see like what are the facts involved here. But we have all these things ought to be this way, and we have all these internal ought statements, like they seem to be corrupting of determining what facts are. So reality should be seen separate from your emotions, and I encourage everyone to remove those emotions from your view of reality.
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult to remove all emotions, in my view, to be honest. But you can keep them in check, so they don't take the best of you when you're trying to analyze information. On the screen, this is the first point that I show. The Bible, the claim of the Bible tells us that God exists. The Bible is the source of the claim. It isn't independent evidence that the being described in the Bible actually exists. A book saying that a supernatural being exists doesn't, by itself, demonstrate that the supernatural being exists. Or, this is for believers in invisible entities. Out of Babylon, not a chip, just the truth. We pay for our lives until we die. That's not free. And I don't know, I'm old fashioned. This is called creating drama. This is something to fight for in your life. I don't know. Maybe you're correct, maybe you're right. It's also good sometimes to provide solutions, not only point the problems. And the solution saying that we are all gods, I don't see it as a solution.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't do anything.
Number two, I mentioned personal experience. Man, I heard this a lot. The claim is that I have experienced God. God told me, God showed me, God revealed to me. The experience might be completely genuine. The interpretation of the experience is a separate matter. Someone can experience something profound, emotional, or seemingly supernatural without that experience establishing its external cause. Out of Babylon is not, it shows the deception. Religions are just a part of it. Out of Babylon, I think the deception is self-created. We have created this deception ourselves. And my view or my possible solution is to educate us, educate the believers, educate humans more, so we take better decisions and we can remove the self-deceptions like believing in invisible gods. This is something that we create, we maintain, in most of the cases because of ignorance, lack of knowledge. So if we can have conversations like this one, I mean, we can move on. We can create more consciousness in people. Go ahead, Robert.
It's my headset up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oops, sorry about that. I wind up pulling one of my earbuds out of my thing, and I realized it immediately flipped my sound over to my earbuds instead of my headset.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I mean, my main problem with these different like frameworks of reality, of these terminologies, the problem is like if you ever want to fix anything, you can't start by making your own framework of vocabulary. You have to interact with the vocabulary that already exists there. So if we're starting to call things things that aren't traditionally called that, so if we're called gods, or we see all of these different, like, oh, this is the truth frameworks, and this doesn't align with the vocabulary and the terms that people regularly use, you're going to introduce a lot of communication problems more so than you're going to fix anything. So start trying to use the terminology that is already widely accepted to describe these things, and then inside of that framework, not from the outside, try to be the change you want to see in the world. But using terminology that's not consensus and not just agreed terminology, you're just adding confusion, as the Bible would say, a trumpet blowing an uncertain sound, so to speak.
Babylon writes, I agree. Again, Clearwaters, we're saying the same thing. I just concluded that we are God. We did this. I mean, the part that we did this, yes, I agree with that. The part that we are God, I don't know about that. It sounds to me like a stretch. Babylon also write, no, he's wrong, and that's the problem. Stop starting with established doctrine and read for yourselves.
Not trying to do established doctrine, established vocabulary in our descriptions. So if I have a particular word that I think that word represents a particular meaning, I try to stick with the dictionary definitions of those things. So if I'm talking about eschatology, Christology, ontology, epistemology, or anything, I want to try to start with the definitions that are regularly used to understand them. Otherwise, you're saying, yeah, I'm using this word, but it means this totally different thing that is traditionally the case. And you use the word God in a way that is very much not how anybody uses the term God. And that's not the only thing that you've been doing that way. So it's not about doctrine. It's literally about a word and what that word means and how that's accepted in a group.
I think also out of Babylon, I think is way better in a lot of conversations to say, I don't know, instead of saying, for example, when you're saying that we are God, I don't know that. So if we are God, there has to be something that can prove that, because just saying it because of saying it can't lead me into the wrong path in life. I'm going to read number 3, which is part of the presentation that I did at the beginning. The claim is, I prayed and God answered me. An event occurring after a prayer doesn't establish that an invisible being caused the event. People also pray for things that don't happen, and often we can accomplish things ourselves faster than waiting for a prayer to be answered. Also, different religions report prayers being answered by different gods. So basically, don't get excited because supposedly your prayer got answered. Especially if you're asking for a Lamborghini and you got a Lamborghini.
Yeah, he said I asked on an earlier show that we define God first. Yeah, but God's already got a definition. Like these terminologies already have definitions, even when they have variations. So when we're talking about a God with a lowercase g, might be a distinction of multiplicity, whereas generally when people use this God, especially with the uppercase g, they mean some kind of supreme being, creator of the universe. And they do think of that supreme being as having an internal, consistent consciousness. However, that religion cashes that out. They don't think that that consciousness is existing upon millions of different people that are all falling small parts of that consciousness. That's a very different term. So I encourage you, if you're going to have a completely different model, that your word God means something that no one else's means, maybe just use a different word. Make one up.
That's a good point, Robert. Now it clicked for me. I mean, basically what Out of Babylon is saying, hey, you're using other people's definition, but then he uses the word God. Yeah. How about you use something else that is not the word God, Out of Babylon? Because apparently that was created by some group of people that probably are trying to control us as using your own words. Probably out of Babylon, the word itself, God, is creating rejection about what you're trying to communicate because you're using the same language as what you're trying to prove something wrong. Oh, Mr. Spider-Man. Welcome to the live stream. That's not how prayer works, Clearwaters. Spider-Man, he's an expert in invisible entities from foreign countries.
Yeah,
How
I don't
about-
think he thinks
Go ahead.
that they get saved. Spider-Man's asking, how do we get saved if God don't hear sinners' prayers? Yeah, I don't think he thinks that model is correct. If you've just now tuning in, you've kind of jumped into the middle of the stew. He thinks we're all God and whatever that entails. So
Out of Babylon writes, by who? Define it now, because when I say that you're God, this shouldn't be hard. This is Genesis. Wow, out of Babylon, you're gonna go back to the book. You have an spaghetti of something in your head about something about this explanation about us and God. Very extremely confusing. Now you confuse me more by mentioning Genesis. Spider-Man writes, how do we get saved if God don't hear sinners' prayers? By chance, Spider-Man, you at least saw the title of the live stream. God of the Bible is not real, period. If you don't have evidence, save the energy on your fingers typing this information that has no value, only for yourself. Out of Babylon, simply lack of understanding of the word. I don't think it's a misunderstanding.
the word, I think that's hilarious that he acts like we're the gods. There's not the singular God, but he still talks about the word. Like these are all just conceptions of people, right or wrong. They're conceptions.
Chuck McNorris is clarifying to Out of Babylon, God is the Anglo-Saxon word, all Old English. Spider-Man, he's not real for Clearwaters and not for yourself. Otherwise, you will be able to provide any evidence for the God, but you don't have any. Romans 1, welcome to the live stream on the vertical stream. You always join the vertical. Waters, who would think to write a book where a God took on the veil of humanity and died a cruel death? Romans 1, I think it's time to have a conversation with you. You know, the God of the Bible is not real, my friend. Period. If you're gonna believe because of assumption, you're assuming things, I think it would be better if you can demonstrate, even to yourself, some kind of evidence or proof that this God of the Bible is real, which you don't have. Otherwise, you will be presenting it, not presenting some information that you, I don't know, by deduction, believe that the God is real. I don't know if the correct word is deduction. Assuming, I'm sorry, I'm assuming.
Well, if the word's not important out of Babylon, then why keep using it? Like by your own confession, it's not important. And like when you pull the Merriam-Webster or any dictionary definition of God, like that's not what you're talking about. So if it's the word's not important, here's an idea: stop using it. I
Romans
think what's
1.
going on is you're using the word because it tries to give weight and brevity to your position, and that's a false weight and a false brevity. People always try to operate with some kind of authority marker, and they, when they get to throw this God thing or the word, there is this sense of imbued authority with what it is that you're saying, and there's no authority there. You're just a human speaking just like we're speaking.
Spider-Man writes, yes, it's very real for me. Thank you, Clearwaters. Don't speak for me, please. Yeah, Spider-Man, the God of the Bible is very real for you, or feels real to you. That doesn't mean that the God is real, and the God is not real, period. End of conversation. Romans 1, Waters, everything you're doing now is being recorded. You will be judged. Romans 1, everything that you're writing is being recorded. You're going to be judged by yourself when you realize that this whole thing is made up. You're going to feel silly, like most of us feel when we look back at our lives when we were believers. Romans 1 also writes, he's so very real. Maybe for you, you believe that, but you have no evidence whatsoever, Romans 1, to demonstrate that this God of Israel is real. End of conversation, period. Unless you have any evidence, something that at least we can entertain as possible evidence for this God. But of course, you have nothing. Number 4 that I presented on the live stream, on the presentation, the claim, I have faith in God. Faith explains why someone believes. It doesn't independently establish that the belief is true. You cannot use belief in God as evidence for God and then use God as the justification for the belief. Romans 1 says or writes, nope, there are tons of evidence, but cannot present just one evidence.
I take it that Romans 1 is on the vertical?
Yes.
Okay.
Romans 1, just in case, I don't know if you're interested, I'm going to provide you with the link so you can move to the horizontal. Just in case.
Yeah, I think there's been this slow transition that's happened over the generations that now there's a poem that's called An Ode to Science, which I think is very reflective of a societarian change since science and falsifiability came about. Many of these different myths and things that we've held on for thousands of years slowly begin to crumble and buckle under the weight of people asking for criteria for things. And I think as that happened, slowly but surely, more of these propositions that people tried to keep alive, they started couching them farther and farther away. I don't think you'll look in the, even Eusebius writings or any of the 4th, 5th century, 6th century, you're not going to find anybody that talks about God being outside of time and space. But as education grew and people become more, needed some kind of standard, the vocabulary grew that, God is more and more distant and more unfalsifiable. And I think this happened in like every culture or everything that they tried to keep alive. It's like when you climb to the top of Mount Olympus and you realize that the gods aren't there, then what do you do? Well, you say, well, they're metaphorically, the mountain was just a symbol, right? And you just keep making them in this more abstract manner. And that seems that's now what we got, to the degree that when we ask for evidence, that people just tacitly, we know that there could be no evidence in the physical sense because we've already made him so far outside of the physical domain. But that's just how they define him now. And that's not how he was defined. Like the Old Testament talks about God coming down in a physical form, touching on the top of Mount Sinai, setting bushes on fire, sending down a pillar of fire that slurped up all the water on the altar, over and over, all of these physical manifestations. And now when we ask for any kind of evidence, we're told, oh, well, God doesn't work that way. It's like he got shy when cameras came around.
Romans 1 wrote, nope, tons of evidence, and then writes, how about you go visit Sodom and Gomorrah? The brimstone that God rained on those wicked cities is still there. Romans 1, nothing that you read somewhere Nothing that someone else is telling you? Do you have first-hand information or evidence of the God right now? Not stories, not beliefs, no personal experiences. Can you demonstrate the God to anybody? Spider-Man says the Clearwaters is very angry tonight. I'm always angry, especially when I have demons inside of me trying to get you and deceive you. I think
don't know that.
I think Spider-Man. I'm just trying to make my point across that this madness about believing in invisible beings from other country is just madness. That you got some tickling in your system, in your chest or in your stomach, and you believe that's the God of Israel. Good for you, but that's no evidence for any God. Hey Judea, welcome to the live stream. I have to immerse myself to see what's going on. Oh my God, what I hear is spicy. Drew Thunder, Clear Waters, do you believe non-living matter produce living matter on its own? Drew Thunder, you've been watching too many cartoons about debates about gods, and you got this silly question. Do you have evidence for a God? Do you? Or you just believing that the God is real because, I don't know, something felt good or you heard something somewhere? Do you have first account information of a God? We're not interested in your question. I'm not interested in your question. Do you have evidence?
Yeah, this is do you believe that snowflakes created themselves? I mean, if you want to look at this more simplified and a silly question, these things, while they look very designed, they emerged. What's so interesting to me is that we've seen this from test. I'm trying to think what the enclosed test is, and maybe Hizzle will know it. Where it was inside of the vacuum, and we got protein formation. We got protein formation from acidics in a bowl, just completely closed off, and we get this low level protein formation. We've seen this happen very naturally. Then we see protein folding happen, where proteins wind up creating a chain, and they do protein foldings and create complex or slightly complex protein structures. And these things are happening very, very naturally. And what's happening is, like, we can show that in nature, some of these events happen, step 1, step 2, step 3, but then we can't get some kind of cell cluster or something to form. We can't get that to naturally occur because that's something that would happen over a longer period of time. And then they're like, aha, well, you can't get a cell structure formation. But the fact that we wind up getting these very uncomplex proteins that wind up forming by themselves, and even protein folding that happens, and this is happening completely naturally by itself, just systemic pressure is giving rise to this, should at very least make you think that yes, maybe something is coming from nothing as far as the matter is with systemic pressure building complexity into it.
Romans 1 writes, you are in denial. I just gave you irrefutable evidence.
Irrefutable evidence.
Do you want to say something about that, Robert? He's saying that how about, he wrote, how about you go visit Sodom and Gomorrah? The brimstone that God rained on those wicked cities is still there. Mount Sinai is still burned today. So that's the irrefutable evidence that the God of Israel is real.
So scholarship's in wide agreement that is not the mountain. That's a mountain that they found that has a black top. and they want to attribute that having a black top, but the location is completely incorrect. As far as the other location that is hailed as the location where Sodom and Gomorrah is, it really depends on which religious fundamentalist group that you're talking to. One might say that it's Tel El Hammon, and another might say that it's Babadine or some other location. They're going to say, oh yes, anywhere they find some kind of salt pillar formation or something, yes, you see, this is the location. But is there any good evidence or scholarship that backs that those are the location? No, there's religious apologists, like was his name Ron Wyatt, that are tout these places. Oh yes, I found the actual location. And archaeologists and whatnot completely debunk this stuff. So I encourage you to, whatever you think is the case, why don't you look at a debunk video on that and maybe talk with AI and understand like what's really going on there and not the nonsense that's been peddled to you.
Besides that, Romans 1, I'm asking for evidence right now. Not something that someone tell you that there's something in Mount Sinai and that is supposed to be coming from a God. No, my friend, no. I think, I don't know, very respectfully, it's time to grow up as a human being and stop believing in these silly stories about invisible entities from foreign countries. I don't believe in demons or devil, but if there's a demon, you have a demon of dishonesty right now that doesn't allow you to see reality clearly. And that's why you're talking about these silly stories about invisible entities. This is not the real you, Romans 1. I look forward to one day have conversations with the real Romans 1, not from something, from a cult, from some doctrine that you are infected with right now. I think the closest answer, Romans 1, to being honest, is that we don't know if there's a God. We don't know where we come from, and we don't know what's going to happen to us when we die. I think that's the most honest answer you can give to anyone, including yourself.
I just want to say now with like AI search engines that can search thousands of websites, and many of them that now have access to those that are beyond paywalls, that have scholarship and has scholarly documents inside of those, and they have access beyond those paywalls that we would have to pay to gain access to these documents even. So many of these AI systems that have such a vast access that we don't regularly have, I encourage you to like use those things for study. I just use a low-level AI, which is Copilot here, and just said, what is the places where people claim is Sodom and Gomorrah and have evidence, and what did they get wrong? And just right out the back, the most common one that people claim is Tal al-Ham. So I'm sorry, I was saying it incorrectly earlier. And right off the back, the number one thing is the geography doesn't match the Bible. Experts in biblical geography show that Tal al-Ham is in the wrong location. Number two, and there's more to it, and they have it from bibliography website. They have links to it. I can put it in the description. Number two, the chronology doesn't fit the biblical timeline. Number three, cosmic airbus claim was retracted. So apparently someone made a bunch of claims about this and then they later retracted it, but the story is very strong. Number four, southern sites fits the text better. This was the other one that I was mentioned. It's on the other side of the Jordan. But anyway, so yeah, you can easily check these things out and stop trying to confirm your biases on these things. But I think as you look into every one of these claims that you use as a foundation to support your proposition, when you begin to evaluate that claim and the foundation that you're building on, it's not strong, it's super weak. And the authorities, archaeologists, and the scholars that study these things, they don't think it means what you've been sold it means by apologists.
Interesting. Part of the initial presentation as a number 5 point, the claim billions of people have believed in God for thousands of years. The age, popularity, or cultural importance of a belief doesn't determine whether the belief is true. human beings have held countless contradictory religious beliefs throughout history.
Yeah, not only that, but that we're constantly adjusting when prophecies or something that are seen as prophecies don't line up with what we thought for thousands of years. It's a super weird phenomenon. I'll give you a primary example. Is there's a verse in Revelations that talks about a statue coming to life. And many modern apologists are now saying, well, this makes sense in the age of AI, right? This is some kind of robotic thing, that it's not a real person. The person that was seeing this could only perceive it as a robot, right? Or they can only see it as a statue that was coming to life. So now this is the lens through which they interpret this imagery to be the case. But for thousands of years, every different culture had a different explanation for what this text meant inside of their own time. So what's happening is we just keep updating what it is that the prophecy is supposed to mean, with every single generation being just as confident as the last about what this imagery meant. And we're all aligning it with the things that we see around us every day and saying, oh yes, that's what it meant. It's hoopla. It didn't mean any of that. You should have understood it inside of the context of its time, not in the context of your time.
Romans 1, if you're still there and listening to Robert, you can always comment if you think he said something wrong or you're not in agreement with. For anybody that is listening to the live stream and is driving right now, your car or your truck on the road, thank you for listening. And please don't chat and drive at the same time. Be safe. As part of the presentation, and the last point of the presentation was point number 6, personal certainty. The claim is, I know God is real. I don't need evidence. Certainty is a psychological state, not evidence. A person can be completely convinced of something and still be wrong. In case you didn't hear the closing of the presentation, the closing says God isn't providing us with the evidence for God. People are. People wrote the Bible. People interpret their experiences as encounters with God. People tell us that God answered their prayers. People preserve the traditions and tell us that they are true. So the question isn't whether people believe God is real. Obviously they do. The question is, where is the evidence that comes from God Himself, or at the very least, evidence that independently demonstrate that this God actually exists? So far, what we have are people making claims about God, and a claim about an invisible being is not evidence that the invisible being exists.
Have I mentioned the Carl Sagan dragon story here before? I don't know if I've ever told it or mentioned anything about it.
Go ahead. I remember you mentioned it.
So there's this. The story goes like this, and just to try to visualize it, we'll put you in the story. And if I say, I have this dragon, this fire-breathing dragon that it's amazing. And you're like, oh yeah, where's it at? Where's it at? It's in my garage. And I take it to the garage, and then I say, yeah, isn't it cool? And you don't see anything there but a ladder and paint cans and whatever you normally see in a garage. And I say, oh, well then I'm sorry, I forgot. It's invisible. You can't see it. And you say, oh, well, maybe we can put some powder down or something on the floor. Maybe if it walks on it, we can see that. And I was like, oh, well, that's a good idea, except it hovers off of the floor a little bit. It doesn't quite touch the floor. And you say, okay, what if we throw some paint on it, maybe, and then we can see that. And I say, well, yeah, it's not tangible to physical objects like that. The paint would just go right through it. It wouldn't stick to it. And we can do this scenario over and over. It's this kind of thing is you're putting the thing that you're defining as outside of the scope of falsifiability. Every time I ask you a question in a way to validate the thing, that you're moving it a little further. And what I don't think that many people understand is that there's been a tradition of moving God so far back that inside of their own theologies, when we ask questions like, well, can I just pray and see if maybe a strike of lightning will hit in the front of me? Oh, no, 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 you can't tempt God. That wouldn't be right. Or God's not going to come to your beck and call, and these kind of things. So they make these excuses as to why these things cannot be demonstrable, in the same way that I could make the excuses about the dragon and say, oh, one reason after another why this thing is not falsifiable. And people are doing this and they don't even realize they're doing it, and they're adding to this. And I'll be honest with you, I had a son that very early on I asked the question, and he's not literate in doctrine or whatnot, but he did believe. And I asked him, why is it that we can't see God? And he says, because he doesn't know any apologetics, he says, there's an invisible shield that's like blocking us so that we can't see it. And I want to know, as funny as that is, there's a tendency inside of people to try to create an excuse for, an apologetics for, why that thing is not tangible, touchable, falsifiable in any way, shape, or form. And he's not the only one that has risen to the occasion to try to defend why you can't demonstrate that character. This happens over and over throughout cultures. Whenever you ask for falsifiability, you push that thing further and further and further back into an area of non-falsifiability, and that's what y'all have done. So then when we ask for evidence, the problem is you now are not using a standard that you would apply to any other god. So when people ask us that infamous question of what would it take for you to believe in God, I generally say, you can actually tell that for me. Whatever it would take for you to believe in Zeus, that he's the true God. Whatever methodological evidence that you would require, I'll just use your model. I'm totally fine with that. But you can't think of a model that would incorporate and allow your God to keep existing and eliminate that God. You can't create a model that would filter out other gods, but would allow your God to become inevitably the case. And that's why people can't answer that question. They can't answer a question of what would make them believe Zeus is true.
Wow. Interesting. Interesting. That's why I like when people insist in presenting the idea that God is real. That's what I like to present Shulum. And ask the question, how can we determine which God created the universe? Let's apply the same measurement, or whatever you want to measure with, to both gods, to see which one comes up as the real one. In case you missed, the conclusion of the presentation was, there is no direct evidence for the existence of any God described by any religion. What we have are human claims, doctrines, sacred texts, traditions, personal experiences, and beliefs. But none of these independently demonstrates that a God actually exists. People have provided the claims. People have provided the explanations. But where is the direct evidence for the gods themselves? Or in other words, in case you don't understand it as a believer, and you don't want to understand it, evidence for God, supposed evidence for God, is being presented to you by other people, not by God. Not by any God. It's always by other people, especially by people that are making money, presenting you with the idea that the God is real.
Yeah, there's this weird argument that now gets done as to why God wouldn't physically show these things, and the suggestion is that God doesn't want to, infringe on somebody's free will, so he wouldn't do that. But he didn't seem to have a problem with the prophets in the Old Testament when the pillar of fire came down to prove that he was the one true God. Like, he didn't mind messing with their free will on the subject at all, apparently.
Hey, James, hi. Who are you in YouTube, if you don't mind?
Yeah, James, just type in the YouTube chat so we can correlate you to the person inside of the chat.
James, if you can hear me, if you can let me know who.
Oh, he just said it. It's Drew Thunder.
Oh, okay, perfect. Let me unmute
Fantastic.
you. Hold on a second. Hey, James, can you hear me?
Hey, hi all. How are you?
Good, good. Yourself?
Doing good. Doing good.
Awesome. Do you have a question or something that you want to say or provide evidence for God?
I think asking evidence. Do you think that that's what a Christianity is proposing? Like what does evidence mean for you?
Well, I mean, I hate to run on you what I just mentioned a moment ago, but whatever would constitute evidence for you that Zeus was real.
Oh, that you said that Zeus was real?
Correct.
Okay, so I think a starting point is prophecy. I think you guys were kind of talking about it a little bit there before. I think, okay, let me go all the way back. Yes, if a God came down and stood in front of you and presented themselves to you, sure, that's, I guess, quote unquote evidence. Okay,
Yeah, that would do
if
it.
Zeus came, okay, sure, but I don't think that the God of Israel operates that way.
Okay.
And what he's trying to do. But for me, yeah, I think one thing you could take that I take is prophecy in the Bible and the fulfillment. I believe them and I accept them. I don't know if the word is evidence, but I believe that the prophecies were fulfilled as they're reported, in the Bible, and the messianic prophecies that Jesus did fulfill them, or other things like the
Which
city
one
of
specifically?
Tyre. With Jesus.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's several different verses that would be considered messianic, but in general, they're saying there's going to be one Jewish man that's going to be born in Bethlehem, that's going to lead many people from all nations to believe in the God of Israel as the one true God. If you basically take the prophecies, and I believe that Jesus has done that. I believe in the God of Israel because of Jesus, and all the other Christians around the world who do believe because of him.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what you're using as the terminology, but the terminology that you just used a moment ago is that all of Israel would believe, which all of Israel believed before Jesus. They just believed in the Yahweh God. So that's not a real accomplishment. And it's not as if Jesus did anything on that front, because the main part of Jerusalem never accepted Jesus. So they already always believed that Jesus coming didn't do that at all.
You're saying that I said that it would be all of Israel?
Yeah, I'm
Or you're
pretty
saying
sure that's the terminology. What's the terminology you're using? That all of like humanity, and what's our verse here?
Let's say we could go to Isaiah 53.
Okay, Isaiah 53. Let me just tell you now, whether you know it or not, the consensus of scholarship on this, and it's been the consensus of Jewish and rabbinic literature on this for generations, is that this is about the suffering servant, is about Israel. It is about, and it literally uses the term Israel many times, that it is referring to Israel. So now what has to happen is Christianity has to see it as, oh, well, it's a dual thing. Yeah, the text we're talking about Israel, but it was like a precursor to Jesus. And then they make small and subtle changes to interpretations inside of that to make it look more like Jesus, such as the words that says, they pierced my hands. The original versing and the original translation did not say pierce. It said they dug. So it didn't say anything about piercing. It's they dug into my hands. And there's constant little mismatches on this regularly, but what happens is then when the Christianity comes, they try to find these texts and reinterpret them. Oh yeah, somehow this was talking about Jesus. Not only does the majority of scholarship not think it was, but the rabbinic literature that has tried to define what this was talking about for generations in the Talmud and otherwise doesn't see this as what you think it's about.
And this is Robert, correct?
Correct.
Robert. So for Robert, I would say verse 9 of Isaiah 53. When you look at, I would want to get your thoughts on this. So if you see where it says, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. So the first question is, if it's speaking about Israel, do you believe that Israel has done no violence? Do you believe that no deceit was in Israel's in Israel's mouth? Would you believe that that is applicable to the nation of Israel?
Yeah, I believe that they thought that Israel and the people that were taken in exile, the Babylonian exile, that got returned to the group later and come back into Judah, I think that they thought they were innocent and that they went into Babylonian exile as completely innocent and they were taken innocently, or they were taken as innocent people and that it wasn't right. So they saw those as suffering servants of God and the people of Israel suffered wrongly.
So it says, he was assigned a grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth. I understand what you're saying, where you're trying to tie it to the Babylonian captivity. I understand, but I would go to those two verses. I don't accept that that's what it's referring to. Whatever they don't qualify. They have done violence and there has been deceit in their mouth, and so I don't believe it's applicable to Israel for that reason.
So there are people that study this in its original language, James, and their scholarship that is well-studied Hebrew and the LXX, which is the Septuagint of this, is the Greek version of this. And I think after it being very well studied, I think you can easily do a Google search to see what the consensus of scholarship is on Isaiah 53. And I think you'll quickly find that it's an overwhelming majority that doesn't think this was about Jesus. And I encourage you to read and understand why they don't think it's about Jesus. If you understand why the scholarship says they don't think it's about Jesus, then I think you'll be a lot more enlightened.
Yeah, I know that a lot of Jewish people don't believe Isaiah 53 is talking about Jesus. I understand that.
I'm not talking
I
about
understand
Jews.
that a lot. And I understand a lot of Jewish scholars when they talk about Israel. And yes, I hear what you're saying, that maybe there's other non-Jewish scholars that would say it is about Israel. I'm just saying they'd have to give a really good answer. And I understand the answer you just gave. I don't think it's sufficient. They'd have to give a much more sufficient answer to how you would describe Israel as no violence, having done no violence and without deceit. And then, you start the conversation there and then address other things.
Well, that's easy.
But yeah,
that's a very easy one. When Babylon took them, they didn't resist, and the reason was because the Babylonian Empire was at least 5 times their size. No one would dare raise a sword and begin to fight back. It's absolute death. So what happens is when Babylonian soldiers come in there, they do take them captive and they submit. So I think they did no violence. It's very possible, or at least the writer is betraying that they did no violence, and that they were taken wrongly. They think that they were wrongly treated and that this was all very unjust, but that they suffered for Israel and for God.
Yeah. So I hear you, but for Isaiah 53, I think that's a clearly talking about Jesus, suffering and definitely taking on our sins. He was pierced for our transgressions. I mean, however, if Israel was pierced for our transgressions, I guess, somebody will explain that. But yeah, you'll have Jewish people read that chapter and think it's a New Testament verse if they haven't, really studied the Bible or things like that. They'll just think it's talking about Jesus. They'll be like, oh yeah, they're not going to immediately think it's about Israel. I understand you're saying scholars who spend a lot of time will say it's about Israel, but it matches up very much so with him. But there's other verses, there's other chapters, there's other prophecies. But yes, I'm just saying that the God of the Bible it seems to use prophecy to show that he is God, and he's trying to say, okay, if there's another God who can do this, show me. I can of course go to my personal life and talk about prophecies and things that have been spoken or things I've seen come to pass and all those things. But obviously, that's not something I would use for convincing a person in this kind of setting. Me and you and the host here. But I believe God, the God of the Bible, does things prophetically that no other God could do. But if they did, if Zeus, yeah, if Zeus were claiming, if Zeus were claiming to do those things, and there were written accounts of Zeus pronouncing things about the future, and then we saw them happening, I'd have to take a look at that. That was one of the things I looked at when I was looking at, when I was potentially agnostic, and I was thinking about, okay, is there any, I've seen so many prophecies in the Bible, is there any other religions I need to look at their prophecies? And I couldn't find anything substantive, and I even went to Quran, and I
Well,
was like,
that's easy. That's easy. Nostradamus. Nostradamus is claimed to be one of the most fulfilled prophecies of anyone that's written anything in history. But the problem is, just like Christianity, what they're doing is they're seeing events and then they're transposing those events onto it past, and they're, oh, this is what it must have meant. So they're reinterpreting the terminologies based on, I think they in large part are doing exactly what Christianity is doing. But do I think that it's fair to do it if Christianity's doing it? Sure. So I think Nostradamus is the one to look into, that is claimed by many of its followers to have hundreds of prophecies that have been fulfilled.
So, if you don't mind, James, to ask you a question, the title of this live stream is "God of the Bible is not real." Period. I put that title because so far haven't been provided any evidence for the God of the Bible, not any other God. I come to that understanding because when people say I have evidence, they always go back to the book, and the book is someone else telling you the prophecy. Is not God himself. Any information that you have from the God is another human being telling you this information. So these prophecies are not coming from God. They're coming from another person, and you're reading what someone else wrote.
So, and I didn't get your name, host.
Javier or Clear Waters. I don't mind, whichever you want to call me.
Okay. So Javier, I'll call you Javier. I do, again, my question is, I understand what you're saying, but do you assume that if a God exists, that the only acceptable way for him to reveal himself is directly? Do you believe indirect revelation is possible?
Do you think evidence for God, demonstrable, you accept it as someone else telling you this information? So
I believe the God.
I'm sorry, yeah, just to finish the question, can you demonstrate God to me by this prophecy that someone else told you about?
Yes. So when I say demonstrate, when you're saying demonstrate, I don't think you can say evidence as in like a court case evidence where it's 100% proof. So for example, if I come on the scene after the fact 100 years later and it's written about, but there's been a long tradition of people that have accepted it, I make a decision to believe it or not believe it. But for those people who were standing there that day when it happened, for them you would say, okay, they saw the prophecy happen. You're saying that once it's somebody retelling it, you're saying that that's where you don't believe that it could be any kind of evidence for anybody after the fact. That's what you're saying.
So believing that the God of the Bible is real, I'm okay with that. That doesn't mean that the God is real.
So we don't have what you're just suggested either. There's no examples of that. We don't have any firsthand accounts that say that they saw the resurrection. We don't have any like Matthew. I'm sorry, I encourage you to look this up, but the scholarship is pretty clear on this too. They don't think Matthew's written by Matthew, Luke by Luke, John by John, and so forth. We think some of the letters were written by Paul, what we call the uncontested letters, that they believe the things are matching as far as the terminology, the wording, the sentence structure, that one writer wrote like 5 of those letters, and they call these the uncontested Paulinian letters, but the rest of these, they're pseudepigraphic, and we don't think they were written by that person. So I think the overwhelming scholarship is that no single person that has put in pen to paper that we have possession of ever actually saw Jesus. And even if Mark really was Mark, even the text don't bear out that Mark ever saw Jesus. Mark was a later follower of Peter, so he wouldn't have met Jesus anyway. So there's no firsthand account that you're referring to.
Well, okay, so when you say firsthand, so Isaiah, so you're saying a Christian shouldn't understand that Isaiah. I mean, I know you're gonna go to who wrote Isaiah, but if it's the claim, if the claim is that Isaiah got the revelation from God directly and wrote it down and spoke the prophecy, or Micah, or any of the other prophets, Daniel, whoever, they got it and wrote it down. You're saying that. What are you saying is not firsthand in that sense?
That's still that's
watching
still,
it being fulfilled.
Yeah, that still falls into the category of someone else telling you that the God is real.
Okay, but for Isaiah, if for him, or whoever's in the living at the time that this is fulfilled, you would say that person has reason to believe if it's fulfilled in their presence.
If someone says in a later generation, though, not that person that was there, says, yes, this thing was fulfilled, but they weren't present whenever it was fulfilled, then by what criteria are you saying that it was fulfilled? It's secondhand saying it was fulfilled before I was born, before I ever seen any, but I believe that it was fulfilled. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, but you're saying, yeah, if it were fulfilled in the presence of the person that is claiming it, you'd say they'd have the reason, but nobody else who comes after or who's told about it. But you're saying that first person,
right? Especially if the writers who are framing it they're very aware of the Jewish text and they're trying to make the things align with the Jewish text to say, oh yes, as it was fulfilled that my son shall come out of Israel, which was a misinterpretation of another text that Matthew wound up doing. So they already have well knowledge of, and now they're writing in 90 AD, many years after Christ. And now they're writing in a way that, oh yes, this thing we're connecting him back to things that were said in the Old Testament, therefore it's fulfilled.
Okay,
does that make
perfect.
sense?
Okay. So let me ask you this question. Sorry, if I get off track, please let me know. But if, let's say the Jews today are still waiting on the Messiah, right? Based on their Old Testament scriptures, they believe the Messiah has not come yet. Okay. Now, when the fulfillment, there are parts that even Christians would say are not fulfilled yet. But are you saying that nothing that Christians believe the Messiah, Jesus, has fulfilled, you don't think that would show up in the quote unquote Messiah that the Jews, if he were to appear later on, that they would that any of it would match up?
James,
I'm not exactly sure what you're saying.
If in my point of view, James, you're going back to information hundreds, thousands of years ago from other people. And you're also going in the future. I don't want to be insistent, but do you have any evidence right now that the God of the Bible is real? Especially, it will be interesting to understand if you have anything that you can demonstrate that this God is real right now, or you're just basing your belief or your conclusion on the information provided by other people.
I would love to rise to your defense on this. I'm gonna be honest, because Javier, I think he's trying to develop a methodological standard by which he would consider it real. And if a prophecy is being fulfilled in whatever sense that we can, validate that, then that to him would be evidence. And I to some degree I would agree. I just don't think that the scholarship thinks that a lot of these terms that's what they're talking about, and they're very ambiguous, and that they don't say this. So let me give you just 3 that are from Nostradamus that I mentioned earlier, and you tell me how solid you think these are. The Great Fire of London. Let's see. His quote was, "The blood of the just will be lacking in London, burnt up in the fire of 66." Then later in 1666, they had the Great Fire of London that burned a large part of London down. Then he's another one of his is the death of King Henry II of France. He says the young lion will overcome the older one. He will pierce his eyes through a golden cage. And then let's see, Henry II died in a jousting accident when a lance splintered through his helmet, through his face mask, into his eyes, and he died. And this is just a few. So there's a lot of people that see these, and I think these. I misspoke earlier whenever I said that I think they're as equal to the Christian. I think these are better. Honestly, I think they're better than anything I've seen in Christian texts. Does that mean that I think Nostradamus was like he was following the truth, man? No, I think that a lot of these are coincidental, and I don't think that you would take this and say, "Oh, this is true. This is proof that Nostradamus was in the right path."
Right. No. I don't. However, I'm trying to think of, if you're stating a year, if 66. I'm trying to be generous. I'm trying to think. But if you're setting an expectation, if you can set enough of an expectation where we know where to look, I would. So I'm trying to listen to what you read initially to see if the expectation would be set somewhere. I think, if you set a year, that'd be pretty interesting.
Whoa. No Christianity has never set a year in anything. So why are you moving the goalposts? Like, you're believing that these things fulfilled prophecy, but literally there's no year that's ever stated for prophecy fulfillment in the entire text. So
Yes,
why would that be a requirement?
It's not that it's a requirement. I'm just saying I'm trying to be generous to try to say I'm looking. We would know where to fix our eyes, or where the expectation is. I'm just trying to be generous, but yeah, I don't see Nostradamus as
Okay, but do you see this as evidence?
a person could take that as evidence for them to say Nostradamus had a power in some
Divine
way.
or something, had some kind of power. Okay,
Yeah,
but you think that would be wrong to take that as evidence?
Without looking at all of them and really going into it, I can't state the reason why.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
no, I
fair.
wouldn't.
Fair, but I think we're
Yeah.
now in the same place, James. You know where we're at now. Like, I think these were better than what I've seen that Christians have touted. That, like, this is the. Oh, by the way, Javier, you got someone in here that's still
Yeah.
muted. Christian Atheism. Maybe want to announce yourself and say who you are in the side chat.
No, he did already. I already muted him.
Okay.
Oh.
But I think that we're in the same place. Like, what you call evidence here, we dismiss in the same way of the coincidence or other reasons of interpretation or other things, in the same way that you that's not really good evidence that there's some divinity here. It's not doing the trick.
Are you familiar with the prophecy of Tyre and Sidon?
James,
Go ahead.
Yeah, James, if you allow me just one moment, two
Sure.
things. I made a live stream and a presentation talking about the competing prophecies between the God of the Bible and the Simpsons. I don't know if you might go see the presentation at least, because I think the Simpsons were more accurate giving names and everything. And also, where did you learn or heard that a prophecy has to do with a supernatural being that sits outside time and space? You must have learned this somewhere. Where did you learn this?
The God has revealed himself in the Bible and talked about how he demonstrates his power. So that I learned it from the Bible.
So the same book that is claiming that God is real, this is where you got the information from?
100%, of course.
Yeah, so we always go back to what someone else is telling you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if God chooses to work through man to reveal himself at times, then that's I don't see that as impossible for an omnipotent God. He can choose to do that however he wants. And I was going to ask Tyre and Sidon. It sounded like Robert is familiar with it. What is your understanding?
Well, my understanding of Tyre is, first of all, that this was supposed to happen inside of a prince's lifetime. There was a boy that's mentioned in the earlier text. I don't think it's supposed to have just been an infinite, uncapped thing. So I think it came down with Alexander the Great, 320 or something BCE. This wound up coming down, and I think it got rebuilt after the Crusades, and it's even was named Tyre. So I think there is presently a modern day Tyre, and they call it Tyre, but the prophecy said that it would never be rebuilt. But it was. I think any scholarship that looks at this says this is a prophecy that failed. It didn't happen.
Mhm. And the fact that the stones were thrown into the sea and all that, for you, it's still
No, it was
you.
supposed to happen inside of the time frame. I think you need to read the whole text by itself, and I think it was supposed to happen in a very short time frame. Instead, like, it just happened over a very, very open-ended time frame that the city fell, and I think it was by the edge of the sea. Some of the stones may have went into the sea, but I don't think all the stones did. And I think ultimately they rebuilt it. I think this prophecy is one of the biggest fails there are. It didn't go as it was told.
I wouldn't. I don't know. I'd say the biggest fail. Like you said, Alexander the Great built that bridge, in a sense, that land bridge, using the wood and the pieces of the rubble from that city to make it across to the other side. And so it was thrown into the sea, as it was said. But there's other ones as well. But I understand. I don't want to keep you guys. But yeah, I would say prophecy, I do accept them. I do believe them. As far as the word evidence, I don't know if that's the word I'd want to use. From your perspective, I guess it's not. But it's not a smoking gun, I guess.
James,
But
if you ever have any information where we can find this God, please don't be selfish. Share it with us.
and I have one question. Can I talk about from just a deist, I guess, perspective, the idea of non-living matter not being able to produce living matter on its own? You would at least say that there's more reason to believe that there is a God, even if we're not talking about the God of the Bible, that there's more reasons to believe there's a God that exists, because we've observed living matter producing living matter, but we've never seen non-living matter produce living matter.
You will not be the first one, James, to present this information. You will be like number, I don't know, 50, saying the same thing. And in that, you don't prove that the God of the Bible is real.
But sure, not the God of the Bible, but I'm saying, okay, let me ask you, do you believe that non-living matter became living matter on its own?
No.
Yeah, I think there's a trick in the vocabulary, and I don't mind sussing it out for you to start with. When we use living matter as a terminology, we have different definitions that are living. So some definitions might not incorporate things like bacteria or very uncomplex bacteria. Some definitions would say, well, bacteria is not living, and we can get down to, okay, complex proteins or self-assembling amino acids. Are these things living? And so what happens is, the best that we can tell when we did the Miller-Urey experiment, which I encourage you to look into, the 1952 Miller-Urey experiment.
Yeah, they only got left-handed amino acids there. Or one-handed, I can't remember which side.
Right. So what happens is we know now that amino acids naturally can form, though, by themselves. And then we've seen protein assembly that happened at a later time, that we're getting non-complex proteins. And then we've seen protein folding happening by itself in natural environments. So, like, we already see three very naturalistic formations that seem to want to form the very early building blocks of life, and they're completely naturally happening. Like, no one is like, oh, let me put these things together. No, they're very naturally coming together by themselves. So yeah,
they're happening in a lab. Are they happening in a lab where humans are guiding experiments?
In the Miller-Urey experiment, it was inside a complete enclosed capsule. So this one is completely enclosed, sealed glass, and we get the amino acids in there.
Yeah, in a lab. But and I hear you. But
Right.
the
The
idea of
reason,
abiogenesis.
hey, no, I don't want it to just be written out as in a lab. The reason that we do it in a lab is because there is living bacteria literally all over the planet. So the problem is if we don't do it in an enclosure that's completely in a lab, then we get false positives, and people like you instead would say, well, other bacteria could have came into it or other living organisms. So instead we do it in isolation so we can show that that's not the case. And then what we get is hand waving, oh, well, it was in a lab. So we're damned if we do, damned if we don't. If we do it in an open environment and we observe this thing, well, other things could have came in. We do it in a completely enclosed environment. Oh, well, you did it in a lab. I don't know what you want, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're setting up the scientist has to set up what would be presumed to be the soup, or whatever we would think early Earth would be. I understand. I'm just saying it's set up how what we would think, but that's fine. It happened in the lab. But my question, two questions. Javier said he doesn't believe non-living matter produced living matter on its own. I would want to understand that a little bit better. And I already forgot my other question. But why do you say you don't believe non-living matter produced living matter on its own, Javier?
I don't know and understand how life started. I cannot say to anybody, hey, look, I can explain it to you because I know how it started. I cannot do that. I don't know. And also I don't know that God started life. I don't know that either.
But there's two options. I think there's two options. And Robert, I'm not trying to word this a certain way. Well, I'm saying either it happened on its own, or if it did not happen on its own. So for Javier, if you say it did not happen on its own, what that implies, that implies something.
Yeah, James, if someone that is also probably on the same spot as I am, like not understanding and not knowing, I would probably entertain more this question. But it seems to me that you already made your conclusion that life came from God. So I think if you don't mind, I think you're in some way trying to get my answer or Robert's answer to somehow align your conclusion to our incorrectness about our answer, or my answer, not Robert's. You know what I mean? So you already made your conclusion. What I'm saying in a way, I can throw it back at you somehow. How an immutable entity that is outside time and space to have a relationship with a human being. How is that possible? Especially a personal relationship with a human being. Sounds to me that that's absolutely impossible. And also, how can an immutable entity that is sitting outside time and space could be making prophecies, especially prophecies that are of no importance or value for anybody? Sounds to me that the whole thing is made up, and really badly made up.
I disagree, but I hear you. I don't want to keep your time. I could go for hours about this. I was just gonna say there are 20 something ideas about abiogenesis and how it could have potentially started. So I hear what you're saying, Robert.
Yeah, Australia's doing a lot of work in this subject of the very early processes presently. I think we've gotten a pretty good picture of what we think happened, but yeah, as far as observing this in the environments that you want to observe them in, now that we have life like teeming and streaming through the earth, we can't do them in open environments. And the reason that we can't is because other life is going to get involved in it. We have, bacteria and water systems and all over the place. So to do it in an open environment, especially when we think the atmosphere, and we drill ice cores and other things, and we think the atmosphere was different atmosphere than what we presently have. We're not even working in the same atmosphere conditions that we think it started in.
And James, if you don't mind, if you're leaving right now, if you don't mind, if you ever have information, evidence, or whatever you want to call it, that doesn't come from another person, no prophecies from other person reading on books. If you have anything direct information, please don't be selfish, provide it to us.
Okay, so then I'll do that. I can do that right now. But see, the thing is, you're trying to ask me to Because if I have a personal experience, does that count?
No.
See, you see what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, even if I'm the one who's experienced the thing, it's for you. It's like, so what could a person bring? What could a
How did you
person bring?
experience it? Feeling it?
Yeah, you could be wrong, James. If you allow me for a moment, yeah, whatever you experience, you just could be wrong. You felt something, and how can you demonstrate to anybody, even to yourself, that was God? You could be absolutely wrong.
No, I couldn't. No, I couldn't. So Javier. So let me not be disrespectful. So I apologize if I was disrespectful. No, I disagree. I disagree. I think that God, there are many people. There are thousands, millions of people, Christians, who have experienced God in a way where they know what God did with them, and they know it was God and nobody else that did it. But yes, you're right that you can't give that experience to somebody else and say, you have to believe exactly the way I believe, because the person didn't have they didn't have that experience. It was just you. So those things, I agree with you, but but that person, he cannot not believe, like that man or woman, they can't deny what happened to them.
It seems to me, James, that there's a process that takes place. You can explain that process with psychology and human behavior, how to get associated with something. And coincidentally, whoever experienced this or whatever with God of the Bible, they knew who the God of the Bible was. They knew about the miracles. They knew about praying. They knew about having a change of heart. They knew this stuff. So that's how they end up having these experiences and already knowing exactly who was in charge of that experience and how that happened. But coincidentally, not one person can demonstrate anything to anybody else but themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get what you expect is a large part what he's saying. If you're having expectation for that to be the thing, that's good. But no, hold on, don't, because this is testified in the fact that many different religions and many different religious writings have had expectations of feeling their God, and when they reach those ecstatic experiences, that's exactly what they felt. So the oracles of Delphi, for example, they felt the god Saturn, move through them. Like they felt Saturn because that's what they believed as their framework, and that's what they were praying to, and then they felt Saturn. The followers of Dionysus did the same thing. They felt the strength of Dionysus come into them, and over. I'm trying to think what it was that Copernicus said when he stands tracing the patterns to and fro of the heavenly bodies, that he's no longer on Earth, but in Ambrosia, or he's with Zeus, with the divine. Like he could feel the presence of the divine just by looking at the stars. So these people, whatever they already think is the case, when they have these experiences and these sensations, they attribute those things to the God that they already believe in.
Okay, so I'm gonna share this. I wasn't planning to do this, but I'm gonna, if you guys allow me,
Go ahead.
I don't think it's gonna convince you. I don't know if it's gonna convince you. I'm not saying it's gonna convince you, but I'm just telling you
share your testimony. Go ahead.
Okay, this is part of my testimony. So I'm gonna do very quickly 3.
Yes.
I'll give you at least 2. So the first thing is
go ahead, James. No worries about time. Go ahead.
Okay, so 2006. At that time, I was about 17, 18 years old, and I was really doubting God. I grew up in a Christian family and all that good stuff, but I was at the point where I was like, you know what, Jesus was just a guy who lived. I don't think you have to believe in him. There's all these religions, there's all these people that believe in all these things. How can you just believe in one thing? And so I kind of just fell away from that, and I wasn't really believing. And one day I was with my friends, and we were doing a sleepover, and one of my friends, he stopped, and it wasn't my friend, he was my friend's friend. So I only knew him through the other person. I didn't know him personally. And so he said, James, I have something to tell you. God says that you are doubting him right now, and God says you are not. You don't fast, and God says if you fast, your doubts will go away. So I stopped, and I was like, I didn't say anything, but I was kind of embarrassed because number one, I was like, how does he know that I'm doubting? Because I didn't express that to anybody. I didn't tell anybody I was doubting. And then number two, he was actually drinking at the time, and he was tipsy, and he was telling me this while he was drunk, right? Kind of. He wasn't drunk, but he was tipsy. And I'm like, why? How would God prophesy through somebody who's like literally doing something that you shouldn't be doing? And so I was like, and how does he know I'm not fasting? Like, I don't fast. Like, how does he know that? And then so I'm like, all right. I thought about it for I think a couple of days, and then I decided to do the first fast I'd ever done, like a proper fast where you're kind of giving it to God. So I decided I'm gonna do 24 hours no food, and I'm just gonna read the Bible. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like, all right, I'll do it that. So I was in my dorm room. I was in college, and I start the day no food, and I'm just praying and reading the Bible and things like that. And then somewhere in the middle of the day, I got to the verse where it says, if you do not forgive those who sin against you, your Father in heaven will not forgive you. And it was the first time I had ever read that Bible verse, but it was like talking directly to me, because I had a problem with my brother for 2 years, where when I was still living at the house for 2 years, I lived in the same room with him, but I didn't speak to him at all because I had a problem with him. Like I told him never talk to me again, da 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 da. And so that day, God showed me, whatever I think I want to believe or know about God, I can't have a relationship with him unless I forgive my brother. So I got super scared, and I was like, you know what? I need to take the bus and go tell my brother I forgive him. And I didn't take the bus that day, but the next morning, my phone rang, and it was my brother. And I was so shocked because I didn't even put his phone number in my phone. I just knew it by heart. That's how much I didn't want to talk to him. But he never calls me. He only calls like if he needed money or something like that. So I said, hello? And he's like, hey. And I was like, hey, what's up? I was like, you need something? And he was like, no, I'm actually just calling to say hi. And I was baffled, because this had never happened before. And I was like, why would he call me this next day? I was gonna take the bus. And so I thought I was so shocked I didn't even tell him I forgave him at that time. And so I just hung up the phone, and I was just very shook. And so that was like, and then what happened, I don't know if it was like the same week or a few weeks later, this girl had borrowed my hard drive, and she took it for school, and then she brought it back to me. And then I had noticed she left some files on the hard drive, but I didn't really pay attention. And then like a few weeks later, I just before I deleted them, I just like looked at what they were. You guys are gonna laugh, but it was Kent Hovind, all the video series of Kent Hovind on the age of the earth, dinosaurs, creationism, and all these things. And so every question that I had that was causing me to doubt about, okay, how did the world, the universe start? I didn't even know there was arguments from a Christian perspective from the Bible for these things. I didn't even know there was any kind of science. And so I watched, and then I
There's
watched
not
all
any
these videos,
science in it, but okay, there's
oh,
pretend science.
okay. But for me, it was
James.
like it answered every single question I had. So I was like, okay, that's crazy, right? Okay, so that's like the first experience. Now, after that, every time I fasted, after that, I mean, things would happen where it was just crazy. I'm gonna give you the craziest. So I'm gonna skip like 15 years, and I'm gonna go to 3 years before COVID hit. So in 2016, I was hearing prophets talk about a tsunami that was coming. I heard this. There was this one lady I was listening to. Her name is Mina Lee Gribben, and she was talking about it. She had a vision where she heard a pandemic. There was going to be a pandemic, and there was going to be chaos and all these things. But when she said it, she said in the vision that she had, or what she was told, what it would be 2 to 3. It was going to be 3 to 6 months. And this is 2016. This was like August, something like that, July, something like that. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, like tsunamis, pandemics. Like, I'm like, God, is any of this gonna happen? So I was praying, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do a 3-day fast. I'm gonna do a 1-day fast, because in the past I would do 3-day fast, 2-day fast, things like that. So I was like, I'm gonna do a 1-day fast and pray and ask God to show me about this, right? So I'm praying, I'm asking God, is there going to be any of this stuff, pandemics? Is there going to be anything like this happening? And so I do the first day of fasting, I go to sleep, and then I wake up and I hear, now just listen, just let me say this. I hear a voice wake me up, and it says, get up and go quickly. And I'm like, what? So I'm in my underwear, and I'm thinking, yo, do I need to go out in the street right now. Like, what? Get up and go quickly. So then I'm like, no, I think God is responding to my prayer. So I said, okay, I'm gonna continue the fast. So I went the first full day because I started at 6 p.m. I finished 6 p.m. I didn't get any more response. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do a second day. So I still no food, no water. I go into the second day. Now the second day, my mom was visiting me. She was visiting the family because she lived in Haiti, and she came to America and she was staying at my uncle's house. So after work, I went and saw my mom. So while I'm over there, my mom asks me a question, and she says, "Do you want to go back with me to Haiti when I go back?" Now, the reason that this is so interesting is because I had been in the United States. I was born in the U.S., but I hadn't been on a plane since 1994, and I hadn't been to Haiti since then. And so this is 2016.
Two more minutes, James.
So I'm like,
2 more minutes.
oh, sure, okay. And so I'm like, why would she ask me that question? And I said, okay, well, I know you were coming to stay for 3 months, right? And she said, yeah, I changed my mind because you're talking about like tsunamis and pandemics. She's like, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm only staying for 2 weeks. So I'm thinking about the voice that it said, get up and go quickly. So I'm like, I have to pray about that. So then I continued the fast, and then I didn't get an answer on the second day. I didn't get an answer on the third day. And then I said, God, please give me a dream if I'm supposed to go. So long story short, God gave me a dream. I saw myself walking into a church, and I couldn't go inside unless I had a ticket. And then the security guard said, you can't come in unless you have a ticket. And I said, what ticket? When I lifted up my hand, I had an airplane ticket in my hand. And he said, put it in the machine. I put it in the machine. He dropped the velvet rope. I walk into the sanctuary, and he says, now you're safe. And I saw myself praising and worshiping God inside the church. And so after that, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Haiti. And so I had 2 weeks, I had a week, or actually 3 days at that point to like get my passport and everything done. And so I did that. And then I went to Haiti on August 6th of 2016. And my whole family was like, how long are you going? I'm like, I don't know. All I know is they're saying, I heard tsunami and God told me to go. And so I ended up staying in Haiti for 9 years. I was there until last year. And then anyway, so I know I have 30 seconds left. So what happened was God didn't let me experience COVID. I was in Haiti watching what was happening, and like this 6 feet of distance and just masks and everything that was happening. And so coronavirus came in waves. So the tsunami, right? There was first wave COVID, second wave COVID. But yes, there was a pandemic. But God, I don't know why. I don't know for what reason. I don't know if it was going to kill me if I were to get COVID. I don't know if that's what it was. But it was like literally the pandemic happened, even though in what she said it was 3 to 6 months. I guess it ended up being 3 to 6 years. So you can go there with interpretations and stuff, or whatever. But anyway, that's one.
James, but let me ask you something. So we listened, in silence to everything you have to say. Where's the part that about God? Where's the part, this whole story about God?
The asking and the answer. So for you, it's not evident, but those are just two examples with many more details.
It seems to me that in your case, someone can say, praise the Lord, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
if I expand my awareness about humanity and the world, I compare your experience with the experience of the guy that have to listen to his children scream for 5 days with his wife buried alive under a building, and he has to hear them scream until they die, and he prayed to God to please save them, and they die, and he was listening to them screaming. I don't know if he committed suicide or what. So are you special, James? That God
No.
gave you these little secrets, but couldn't save 2 kids. One was 2 years old, and the other one's like 5.
No, I'm not special. Like I said, there's been many other people who have also testified of the answer prayers.
What I'm saying, James, is that it seems to me that when someone believes that these little gossips from God is God, you are disconnected from reality. I'm not trying to be offensive.
Of course.
I mean, if you walk around, for example, in Venezuela, you will see your experience and you will feel very silly. because you're disconnected from reality. Do you know why I'm telling you this with a little bit of authority, James? Because I don't know if you're aware, you're talking to two ex-believers. Myself, you can go back to my library and you can listen and watch my experience with the Holy Spirit. I got touched by God. So what you're telling me is nothing new. I don't see evidence of God anywhere in your story.
I don't know where to even start. I'd love to tackle a little bit though myself though.
Go ahead, Robert.
The first thing right out the gate, like how did he even know? Generally, you can see demeanors on people's face, especially if they're losing faith in something and that's causing a sad or melancholy demeanor. This is super easy to see. I've had people come up to me and say, "Oh, it's okay, hang in there." You know, this is not something prophetical or as if God give them a message. Your face gave them a message. And secondly, coming up to someone and saying, "Oh, you're not fasting." I'm going to do it right now. Javier, you're not fasting right now. Or I can pick someone else. Let me see. Let's see. Mick Time, you're not fasting. Chuck Norris, you're not fasting right now. Did I get that right on all three of you? I don't think that's a very difficult job to do. And I don't mean to be super critical on that subject, but then it seems like much of the other things that you're doing, you're assuming that these things that are happening to you, they're God. And we don't count our losses. So when we flip a coin, so to speak, and we say, "God, answer this thing for me," and it doesn't get answered, we dismiss that. It's not like we write that down as, okay, I'm going to count this one as not answered. And then the next time we pray, okay, I'll count this one as not. So we're not balancing. We're not measuring this against answered and unanswered to start with. We only count our wins, never our losses, so to speak. And then the third one, and I hate to be so blunt with you, but the last one about the airplane ticket just showing up in your hand, I just flat out do not believe you on that. I believe that you're making that up. And I believe whether you've convinced yourself or you've rewritten the history in your head that that's the case, I don't know the answer to that. But I think that is outright made up, and you have no way to demonstrate it either way. People remember things that line up with the framework that was many days older that you've pulled into this and you've kind of reimagined. I don't know the answer to that question. I have no idea, but it's not convincing for me, obviously.
Right, but I mean, so for me, it was enough. I know what I saw, and it was enough for me to say, okay, I guess I'm getting on a plane and leaving my job and my car and my apartment and my family, the rest of my family and friends, and going to this country I haven't been to in 20 years, and I'm happy I did that. You know, because what I saw going on in America during the pandemic, I was just my brain was like, the country is changing. I'm like, what is going on? So I understand what you're saying, and I said that before from the outset. There's no reason for you to believe what I'm saying. But no, I had 4 dreams that night, and that one was the first dream
Before we
I
get
had.
into more and more of those, because like none of them are weighing for me, but I want you to keep something in mind. I want you to keep this in mind when you have these things that you think like God is doing these little things, like trivial things, like giving you dreams I remember hearing a testimony about God keeping the rain off of a praying lady's undergarments while they were drying on the clothesline. Keep this in mind when you think all these trivial things are being done for you. The 2026 UNICEF report for child fatalities from malnutrition that they were not feeding is 100,000 children are believed to have already died inside of this year of malnourishment and not eating. Now, contrast that's happening with God gave you a dream for these particular things to happen, or whether we're talking about praying and then the rain didn't fall on my grandma's clothesline or some trivial thing. Like, contrast these together and think about all of the different parents that have lost loved ones, clenching onto their children's, praying, begging, shaking the heavens with prayers to save my child. And that didn't happen. But you're just so favored that God does these things. There's almost like this center of the universe mentality that's going on there that I encourage you to evaluate a little bit. That being said, I apologize that I'm jumping off on such a harsh note, but my wife does need some help with something. And Javier, I appreciate it as always. It's all good talking to you, James. I'd love to talk to you
Good
again
talking to you,
sometime.
Robert.
Take care.
Thank you, Robert.
Absolutely.
Hey, James, I don't know, I don't know if you have visited my library, but there's another video presentation where I talk about my aunt. My aunt here in Panama, she died already. She was very famous. She had people visiting her from other countries. She had a special power. She said that something about God communicating with her, to the point that one time I went to her and talked to her in a little room, and she was telling me about some things. I'm like, man, you're totally wrong about whatever you're telling me. A black bird and some Indian guy with a tie. But later in the years, I found out that she was telling me the future very accurately. And so it seems to me now that we human beings have something. Also, my sister, she died already. She has something also that she could, see weird things. It seems to me that us human beings have something in us, some energy that we need to explore. And sadly, we're putting a label to this, and it ends the exploration because we call it God. And that definition, we are accepting it from someone else. This is not you coming to that conclusion. Someone else came to the conclusion, and you accepted it. And that's the sad part. And that's, go ahead.
And was your aunt, was that the Catholic faith? Was it Protestant? Was it? Or
yeah,
something else?
I was Christian Catholic. And
Catholic,
all those, I experienced people rolling on the ground. I experienced the Holy Spirit. I experienced all kinds of things. I even spoke in tongues. To tell you, yes.
In a Catholic church.
Yes, I went to retreats. I got to experience a lot because I was part of many groups. I was part of the prayer group, the youth group. I was part of the choir. I was part of the, I don't remember even the names. So I had to go to different places and play music. So I would see everything. So what you're telling me right now about these things that happen to you, not even, it doesn't surprise me. And at the end, James, whoever supposedly thinks that they're getting these messages from God or this information from God, it must feel extraordinarily good to you to know that you're getting these little messages from the most powerful being in the universe. It must make you feel important and most give meaning to your life. That's why I continue saying in my live streams that believing in God has nothing to do with believing in God. This is something to do with your feelings.
I'm sad to hear that. If you had a relationship with God and you don't have it now, I'm very sad to hear that. But at the same time, I understand the logic of the person who gets to the place where they don't believe in God. I try to be sympathetic, and so of course I'm not trying to be insulting in any way. But yeah, I think it's a benefit, not just with the things you just said. I think it's a benefit, specifically the God of the Bible, what the righteous living and the way He tells us to treat others and the way to get to happiness and fulfillment. I think if atheism could be a way to get people to that on a large scale, I mean, it gives you freedoms in one way, but I don't believe it gets to that fulfillment in the same way. So I don't think any other religion, quote unquote, gets to that. I think the words that Jesus Christ gives us the best moral framework for righteousness and being good people. That's my belief. So I'm sad to hear that. My question to you would be, do you believe that atheism provides you an objective a framework for morality, like objective morality, things like that, or is it subjective? Everybody does it how they want. Uh, this could be good for one person. This could be bad for another person. What is your personal view of that?
I don't I
I
don't
think
have
it's
the
objective.
I don't have the view of an atheist. I'm not an atheist, so I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I'm a human being that like to ask questions and like to understand things. So I like to understand where we come from. I don't know that we come from a God.
Mm. Okay.
I would say
You,
that I am an atheist, and I would say that
okay.
morality is objective.
You say morality is objective.
Yeah.
Oh, is it okay, Javier, if I
Sure.
get into
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So for how okay, is it okay, let's start with an example. Unless you want to define that, I would say, is it wrong for humans to kill humans, and why?
Yeah. So I would say that it is wrong for humans to kill other humans, and the reason why I would say it's wrong to do that is because, like atheist calculus can look at stance-independent reasons for why murdering is wrong. An example of that would be we have access to reasons that motivate us to do certain actions, and if they're going to be objective reasons, then they have to be stance-independent. An example of that would be like pain, creating pain, for example. Pain motivates us to not engage in that activity. First-hand example of that would be putting your hand on a fire. We don't want to do that. And because I don't have, or I don't think anyone really has, a coherent sense of personal identity, all reasons would therefore be stance-independent, therefore qualifying moral realism or objective morality on atheism. I think atheism is the only worldview that can ground objective morals. Theism obviously fails in that regard.
And so
Christian atheism, if you don't mind my question, why don't you go around killing people if you don't believe in God?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of my own personal psychological disposition, I just have a preference not to do that. But I don't think that engages with my argument for objective morality. The argument for objective morality is independent of my personal actions.
So then would you say that a baby, a baby has, you said, reasons?
Yeah.
So the baby has reasons, even if it's just a baby that's the day before it's born or the day after it's born.
Yeah, given my semantics of reasons, they would, because they have access to qualia, just being some kind of first-hand subjective experience. Animals would as well, by the way. Plants wouldn't.
Okay, animals. That's where I was going to actually go. So do you believe it's wrong to kill and eat animals?
I think it's objectively wrong, yeah. I mean, I'm not a vegan.
Why are you not a vegan if you believe that it's wrong to? Because this is what I'm going to get to, is when you're talking about objective morality and being consistent with it. Why aren't you a vegan?
Because I'm immoral.
Because you're immoral.
Yep.
And so I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's the answer. But from your perspective, I know that.
So do you.
Yes.
Do you sin? Do you sin?
Yes, I do. But
because you're immoral?
Yes, but what you're saying.
Okay, cool. We agree.
I think that I don't think you would willingly eat the animal's flesh if you truly believe that. So, for example, if it's a human, if you knew it was human flesh, you wouldn't do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So,
of course, yeah.
I think you know that there's a difference between human and animal, but the worldview doesn't allow for it's an arbitrary distinction there.
What do you think arbitrary means?
I believe that my understanding is that from the atheist perspective or the evolutionist perspective, there is one common ancestor that animals and humans have. And so and plants. And so if you are going to decide which ones are off limits, you're just going to have to draw the line, knowing that ultimately you all came from the same thing. One person might draw the line and say, we're cannibals, we eat other humans, but we don't eat humans from our own tribe, or we don't eat humans from our own race. Or they expand it to species and say we don't eat from our species, so they don't eat humans. Or somebody, some might say our own kingdom or phylum or whatever, and then you get vegans who say, yeah, we'll only eat plants. So the line is arbitrary, and that, so I don't know, I didn't give a definition of arbitrary, but I gave examples to kind of help understand what I mean.
Yeah, sure. If your argument is that my actions, my actions are indexed to an arbitrary axis that I've invented, that's true, but that doesn't contradict my claim that atheism can ground moral realism. Those two things aren't in contradiction. I could just say that I am not motivated by the moral realist reasons, and it still wouldn't contradict the premise that atheism can ground objective morality. But
you can ground it for yourself, but another person can ground it in a different way for themselves.
Wait, hold on, that doesn't follow from my argument for moral realism. Do you remember my argument for moral realism?
Well, you said that we all have reasons, right? Well, I think that's how you grounded it. And then because we have reasons, something, I can't remember exactly how you stated it, but I'm saying that another person might not agree with you.
That's true, and some people can also disagree with scientific propositions. Doesn't make the scientific propositions false.
So the person might even agree that that the person has reasons, and they can say that that is not relevant to them.
That's what I'm saying.
So who's right, who's wrong? So if the vegan,
I can understand. I can tell you who's right or wrong. Yeah, the person who acts in accordance to the moral realist criteria, they'd be acting in accordance to stance-independent moral facts. Now, I'm saying that I'm not rational in that sense, and therefore I'm not motivated by them, but it doesn't change the fact that atheism is the only worldview that can ground objective morality.
Okay, great. Okay, then to Javier, just a few more minutes, one more minute here. So then, and your name's Christian?
Yeah, Christian atheism.
Okay. So when does a human start having reasons in the development? I'm talking about within the womb of the mother. When does this begin?
Yeah, it's about 20 to 24 weeks of gestation, post-gestation. That's when we start to have a qualitative experience.
That's when they start to have reasons.
That's when they become moral agents, yeah, for human beings.
Okay. And so for you, the way you're speaking, it sounds like you would say abortion you would be against abortion after that point. Is that what you're?
Well, again, my kind of preferences and actions don't have any relevance to the moral realist criteria. If we talk about the argument itself, then yes, I would say that it's objectively not moral either way to have an abortion.
Oh, you're saying it's not moral, no, even if it's not developed that yet.
Yeah, so it wouldn't succeed on the moral realist criteria to have an abortion. Therefore, under, I guess, like conventional meta-ethics, you would just say that, yeah, it's permissible to have an abortion before the 20th week of gestation.
Oh, okay. You're saying it would be permissible before.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then would you say that a mother, if a woman decides to have an abortion, let's say in the 7th month, you wouldn't say that her bodily autonomy, she shouldn't, you would say she shouldn't have the right to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. It's consistent. So I'm with you, but I think yeah, I don't I think other people, nobody else has to adhere to your definitions, and that's why you'd have to show me why anybody would have to adhere to your definitions and agree that those are the priority for decision making morally.
Definitions for good and bad, you mean, James?
Yes.
Well, it depends what you mean by the term "has" there. Like that's like a modal operator, right? And if you're clarifying what modal scope, if you mean deontic, then there's obviously deontic reason because it succeeds on the moral realist criteria. If you're asking physically or logically, then obviously they don't have to logically or physically do it. But I'm not arguing about like physicalism or kind of logical positivism. I'm positing a moral realist criteria.
Because if we try to apply that to, let's say, the war, I'm trying to think of like any I don't know. I feel like there are questions I could ask you that I think it would fail, but I'm not ready to do that right now. But
That's fair, but to be clear, like, I'm not coming here to defend applied ethics, right? I'm here to defend meta-ethics. If you don't think atheism can ground objective morality, then that's a meta-ethical conversation. And I think I presented an argument for a meta-ethical view on a realist view, meta-ethical realist view on atheism. And so to tell me that this wouldn't apply necessarily to real-world situations is then changing the goalpost to applied ethics, which I'm happy to have the conversation for, but doesn't defeat a meta-ethical position.
well, no, I understand, but I'm just saying whatever the meta-ethical position that you're holding, I don't know that. Okay, maybe I'm misquoting it. I'm missaying it. I'm saying you'd have to tell me why other people ought to adhere to your definition, like your structure, your definition.
Well, again, ought is a moral term, right? It's a moral operator, right? And so if you're asking for the moral reason to do something, I've given you the reason for moral realism. And so if you're asking for what reason do we have to follow this criteria, well, are you motivated by stance-independent moral facts? If you are, then here's the argument for that.
But I'm just gonna repeat myself. You're telling me why you believe this should work this way? I'm saying, why does the guy next to you have to, if he has another way of seeing things, why does he have to listen to your way? So for example, if there's a tribe in the Amazon, all they know is that we prioritize our tribe and we kill everything else is our enemy. Do you understand what I'm saying? Their reasoning is that anything who is not our tribe is our enemy and they must die.
It seems to me, James, that this has to do with human behavior.
Yeah.
This is nothing to do with a God. You're talking about how we human beings process thoughts, how we feel as human beings, and what leads our actions.
Yes, Javier. But what I'm saying is, if you have two different people who can come, two different groups or two different people who can come to their reasons or morality in a different way, I'm saying it's not because there's without a God. I'm saying it then leads you to a place where it's not objective. It can it can be objective for you, but it can't be objective for everybody. It'd be subjective.
Yeah, I think we might be equivocating on the term objective for me. Just because individuals disagree on the truth properties of certain propositions doesn't mean that there isn't a fundamental ontology of which we're all united by, right? And so we just do the companions in guilt argument. Just because there are scientific truths and some people disagree on scientific. Okay, here's a basic example. Just because people disagree on the shape of the Earth doesn't mean there isn't a true proposition determined by science to determine what the shape of the Earth actually is. And that would be the case in meta-ethics. Just because people disagree on their morality doesn't mean there aren't stance-independent moral facts by which we can know what is objectively the case. So by saying people disagree isn't a defeater to moral realism.
It's my point of view, James. I ask you the same question I asked Christian atheism. Why don't you go around killing people?
You're asking me the question. Why don't I go around killing people?
Yes.
I don't have the desire to. If I did have the desire to, I wouldn't. Primarily, I don't know if it would be for the law or for the Bible. I don't know if I was killing, because I've never had the desire to kill people. I'm trying to think, but yeah, ultimately the standard would be God's word.
Yeah, my view is that the same reason that Christian atheism, you and myself don't go around killing people is because we don't feel like it.
Agreed.
There's nothing else.
See, but that's no. But see, but you're going a little farther. Let's pick something lower, close to the ground. Like there might be sometimes you want to say something to somebody that maybe it would be hurtful, or maybe you want to, do something to get back at somebody, or whatever it is, or whatever the thing is that you have that you want to do, that is going to hurt the other person or whatever. There are times where I fail, where I do it anyway, but the reason I know I shouldn't is because, God doesn't want me to do it.
My view, James, this is human behavior. I explained this many times on the live streams. When you grab information, whichever the information comes from, you're always going to reference that information, that data that you're getting in your head. You're going to reference with your feel state. if you have some negative feel state about something, you're gonna grab that data and you're gonna use it to move yourself from a negative feel state into a positive feel state. And that movement of energy is gonna create action. So you're gonna take action on something based on what you felt about some information that you got. So to agree with your simple example, someone calling someone else fat.
Mhm.
If you don't feel fat yourself, you have no negative feel state about being fat, you're not gonna even reference the person or say anything. But someone that feels insecure about their weight and they have a negative feel state regarding the way they look because they think they're fat, they're gonna grab a hold of some data, some person, they're gonna use it to make themselves feel good, and they're gonna take action by telling that person, hey, you're fat. Very simple scenario. Okay, you didn't want to talk about the scenario about killing someone, but this is how we humans takes decision every minute of the day. Nothing to do with a God. This is humanity 101 in my point of view.
Well, I can tell you, if I will say this honestly, I would be so much worse of a person if I didn't have the word. Because I was talking about, I don't know if you heard Christian, I was talking about not forgiving my brother and things like that. I was, hard-hearted. Do you think that's bad, right? Maybe for you guys, you don't feel like it's bad or wrong to not forgive people, but the biblical framework tells us not to do that. And so it's not fun. Forgiving people is one of the hardest things. It's like, and but it's easy when God shows you how it works, and God's like, you know what, you've done all this wrong. Do you want me to forgive you? And you start to understand that you're just like that person who did you wrong. You've done wrong to a bunch of people, so forgive them. And so it becomes easier. But in the moment, when it's like, if I didn't have that kind of framework to understand, I'm telling you right now, I'd be one of the coldest people. Because the way I was,
But that doesn't sound good, James.
Yeah, it's true.
You're acting in a certain way because of some external force. I forgive people. I forget people without a God.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I don't go around forgiving or forgiving people. I'm never in a how you say victim mentality that I have to forgive people for hurting me. But even if I do, I know I don't need external forces to convince me to forgive someone. I think that there's more honesty doing that out of my own heart. That because of a God is not forcing me, but inspiring me, or I don't know, convincing me to do it.
Well, you consider yourself a righteous person.
I consider myself a person that is starting to understand how humanity works and how I operate as a human being.
I don't consider myself a righteous person. I don't consider myself a good person. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be good. And I think the Christian experience is the admitting that you're not good, because God, from our understanding, you can't even approach God if you don't understand that you're flawed. So, and need helping or saving or fixing. And so, yeah, we work towards perfection every day, but yeah, no, I'm not good. The Bible is like a mirror that shows me, what I need to work on. It shows me,
James, Christianity doesn't want you good, doesn't want you corrected. The Christianity needs you broken. Otherwise, how are you going to consume God? You see, you need to be in a negative feel state constantly. So you're always trying to move yourself to a good feel state. Guess with what? With the God of Christianity. No, this is an emotional game, James. You're gonna figure it out yourself, my friend.
I disagree, because when you overcome the tests, right? When you've learned certain things and you grow and you're seeing the word telling you, okay, fix this, and then okay, man, this time I didn't react the same way, I didn't do this, I didn't fall into this, I didn't give into that, and then you have mastered that thing, and then now you're on to the next thing. It's not that you're trying to remain in a negative feel state. It's because you're conquering things slowly, and there's less to feel bad about. As you're getting better, you're actually improving. You're improving. I think there can be improvement somewhat, just by self-reflection, sure, but it's like the Bible is giving you the keys to do it. So no, I don't think the Bible needs you in a negative feel state. I think it's just, it shows you your negative qualities, it tells you what negative and positive is, so you can have that calibration, and then you start trying to fix what as much as you can every day, working towards perfection.
In my point of view, James, there's no growing as a human being as long as you're dependent on a God. You're always going to be dependent on the external God out of yourself. You're not a good person, you're a sinner, you're dirty, and you need the God. There's no growing in that.
Okay, but I just asked you if you are righteous. So do you so what, you didn't say yes or no, so I have to ask you again. Okay, do you do wrong?
I do things that are not beneficial for myself sometimes. And sometimes I think that by doing these things that don't benefit me as a human being, also don't benefit humanity. I don't talk God in the good or bad. I don't go around killing people because it doesn't make me feel good. I don't go around killing people because if I kill someone, I'm going to be put in jail, and that's going to make me feel bad. It's very simple. As a human being, I'm avoiding pain and moving towards pleasure. This is what I'm doing, and this is exactly what you're doing with God. You're avoiding going to hell, and you're seeking pleasure with God.
Okay, so then if somebody is like a heavy drinker and they're having anger issues and and then they get saved, and they're telling you since that day, I'm not saying it's a normative, I'm not saying every single person, I'm just saying if this one person tells you, man, this thing that I had, God took it away, and I'm living life differently, I see things differently, I treat people differently, what do you say to that person that had that experience, who's now do you think it's a good thing that they stop drinking? Do you think that that's good that they stop with that anger issues?
I think it's beneficial for themselves if they got out of a negative situation or negative feel state, and they move themselves to a positive feel state, and they change their life on that change in a more beneficial way. So in that sense, the God is unimportant because now they feel good.
No, they're telling you this is the day it happened. They're telling you that this is how it happened for me.
I'm sorry, James, to interrupt you for a second. People change also like that. They change their life. They stop drinking. They turn their life 180 degrees without a God.
Yes.
I had a family member that stopped smoking the entire life one day to the other. No God involved. Change their life around and improve their life. I mean, totally. No God involved.
Is it wrong to smoke?
The God is unimportant. It's the human being and how they're feeling. That's it. There's nothing else.
But yes, but I'm saying the definition of the smoking and the drinking, I'm saying that the Bible highlights that and tells you, this is a problem, this is an issue. I don't know that it's actually wrong to smoke from the atheist perspective. I don't know that it's wrong to smoke, wrong to drink.
James, if basically the Bible is telling you you're stupid, and because you cannot think for yourself, and you cannot figure it out because you're not smart enough and you're a sinner, I'm gonna write it down for you. The Bible is not good for you or for anybody. It could have some positive effects for some people, but ultimately, it's not good for anybody, because this is something external of yourself. You cannot create dependence on a God, on Jesus, on a book of what some other people are telling you who God is and how to live your life. Because some other people are getting the same type of information that you're getting from Islam, from Voodoo, from Santeria, from other religions, and they also saying the same things that you're saying. Hey, the book is helping me. The God of Santeria is helping me. It's making my life better. And everybody's pulling in their own different ways and separating themselves and creating dependence on other people's belief and descriptions about life. It's not good for you, James, at the long run. It's not good for anybody. And I'm proof of that, and other people are proof of that. They can live their life peacefully, lovingly, without a God.
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, man. This is great. What you're saying. I have so much to say about it, because when I look at the United States, when I look at countries where, yeah, voodoo and Santeria, when I look at certain countries, idol worship and demon worship, spirit worship, I, I see the most prosperous, most blessed nation in the world is the United States, and whatever faults and flaws anybody could point out about it, people are swimming across rivers, mountains, valleys to get to this place called the United States, the land of opportunity. And you'll make the argument that it's not because of God and it's not God and this and that, but there's a blessing, there's a prosperity that exists in this nation, and it seems to be going away as people are as the country is turning its back on God. I think that's a very bad thing. But what you just said, when you say that they're finding this in these other religions, when I look at those countries where those practices are prevalent, I don't see nations that are prospering. I'm from Haiti, or my family's from Haiti. The things I've seen that those practices, the stories I can tell you about what spirits do to people, these evil spirits and poor children, like things I've seen, kids falling out, the spirits taking over them during school, during classes, and the demon speaking out of their mouth,
James, you don't have to tell me about it. I have family members that used to practice Santeria.
Oh man.
Yeah, so you don't have to tell me about it. The horrible things, the animal sacrifices. So this is nothing new for me. So believe me. And besides that, James, you know that I grew up listening to Haitian music. I love Haitian music. Yeah, since I was a child.
Yeah.
But James, in the United States, and we're almost done because I'm only doing 5 more minutes, 3 hours. The United States, I think, is a great country, or was a great country. I was born in the States. It's because of the people, not because of God or any God, because there are many people that believe in different gods. And I think it's because of the people, the type of people, the United States, the US person. It seems to me, I don't think we can give credit to a God, especially, James, if we're talking about the God of Israel.
No, we have to give the glory to the God of Israel. The United States is the only nation that was consecrated and given to God, and we see the blessings of that. Other than Israel, that has the God of Israel, obviously, but we consecrated this nation to God, and so I believe that's the reason we have our blessings. And that's all I can say. I'm sad to hear you saying the things you say, but I'm happy that it's a respectful conversation, but I have to disagree with you. God is the reason. God is the reason for the United States prosperity.
I want to say something, and then you can, just 1 minute, sum it up. You want to close it? For me, James, this is why I say that it's a problem to believe in God. It's a problematic for humanity to say things like you said. You have to give credit to an invisible entity from a foreign country. I give credit to the human being, to the hard worker, to the honest person, to the transparent person, to people that have decency, hard working. Giving credit to an invisible entity, especially from a foreign country, is not good for anybody. It's not good for a country. It's not good for us, for humanity. Go ahead, James.
Clean Waters, before we wrap up, can I interject something?
Let James
Yeah.
1 minute, and then we
Oh.
give you a few minutes, Christian, so you can finish.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, I'll be, I mean, quick. Everything you've said, Javier, it's sad to hear and to know that you were once a believer and that you're saying these things. I understand how you got there. I was once almost there myself. I hope and pray that you and anybody else who has these doubts would see the value and see the reason, and that God would touch and, you know, give you the light or the experience or whatever it is, the word or the revelation that you need, because he's the way. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life, and he's real. That's, you know, so God bless everybody in the chat, and y'all hear what Christian has to say.
Thank you, James. Hopefully this is not the last time you call. You're always welcome to call. You were very respectful, so I appreciate that. Christian, Atheism, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to everyone, both James and Clean Waters, for this. It's very respectful. I would like to say that maybe we can carry this on next time, but I did enjoy talking about atheist arguments for objective morality, but I think the inverse also needs to be discussed. It's one of the cliches of Christian theist apologetics to just assert that Christian theism can ground objective morality. I think that needs to also be called into question. Christian theism, as well as bare bones theism, so just the proposition that God exists, is a form of idealism, so the view that the fundamental substance of the universe is mind-like or is a consciousness. This means that all properties that Christians want to refer to are stance-dependent, and if they are stance-dependent, then they are subjective. So properties such as virtue ethics, or even just bare bones stance independent moral facts, these things would have the substance of a mind-like identity, which would make them subjective by definition. And so maybe next time, unless James has more time, we can talk about it now, but maybe next time we can talk about whether or not Christian theism or the biblical God can successfully ground objective moral facts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christians.
Yeah.
You're both welcome to join again and have these conversations. Thank you so much for participating on the live stream, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys.
All right, awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Robert, Christian, and everybody on the live stream. Thank you so much for being here, man. What is it? Oh, perfect time in 3 hours. That was an interesting conversation. Thank you for the... Man, give me just 1 second. What's going on here? Yeah, okay. So, sorry, I got distracted for a moment there. Been the 3 hours for this live stream. Thank you so much, everybody. This was God of the Bible is not real, period. We have no evidence for God, nothing, nobody presenting any evidence right now. It's just information provided by other people, from other people, but not information directly. Aaron, I'm closing right now. I'm shutting down. It's been 3 hours. A little bit late.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I had saw y'all were on, but I just tried to see if y'all were live, but I know you're leaving, so y'all have a good day, or you have a good day.
All right, Aaron, thank you. All right, everybody, thank you for participating. Thank you for being on the live stream, and I'll be seeing you again tomorrow night with another live stream, another presentation, possibly. Thank you. Have a good night and an awesome day tomorrow.